Gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being here this morning. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for signing up. Y'all are in the first session of one of 6 we're doing this week, and I appreciate you being here. This is a first for us in a number of different areas. First, we want to thank GTCC for helping to sponsor this class. Tim is here with us, and hopefully everybody got their registration here this morning. So we appreciate GTCC partnering. We haven't been able to do this with them very much, so this is new ground for us and them, and we appreciate Tim. We appreciate that opportunity. We also are funding this through a grant that we got from ADT, and so we'll give appreciation to ADT for helping pay for this week as well. But we're excited to have you and appreciate you being here. We have very rarely have had mandatory training where we call all of our company officers back. Something I hope we can do more in the future as we move forward. So I appreciate you being here today. Everybody's got a handout, and I'll take just a moment to touch base on it, and then we'll turn the program over to Chief Harms here today. Do we have any non-GFD folks in this class? Amidst anybody? We do have in some of the sessions, and so we want to welcome all of our guests with us this week as well. Our program today is going to be presented by Chief Harms. You've got a handout with his background and information, but it's Assistant Chief in Phoenix. And as I started asking questions, we've been working on this week's classes for 6-8 months and asking questions and trying to find out who is a good presenter, who is a person who can help lead us here to show us the information we need and present it in a way that will be meaningful to all of us. And so Chief Harms' name kept coming up, and I want to welcome him here to Greensboro Fire today. Most of us throughout our careers have recognized Phoenix as a leader in the fire service, and hopefully we can learn some things today from them and their best practices. So you've got Chief Harms' background. I had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him last night, and I'm really excited about his program this week and look forward to his presentation. On the second page of your handout, I give a reminder to you of the things that we have here together this week, some of the things that we all work on all the time, the things that we look at as priorities and operational priorities, vision, values, and performance, things that you see often, but again, I want to take time to say those are important things. Everything we do needs to think around safety to ourselves, safety to the people we serve. We need to think about courtesy and being polite, kind, courteous to people. Excellent service, efficiency, and continuous improvement. And really what we're trying to do here this week is all about continuous improvement. I have also included a sheet as another reminder of the things we're working on in follow-up to the January Elm Street fire. Captain Sutterth is here with us in this session today. And I'll tell you, I had a chance yesterday afternoon to see his presentation over in Winston-Salem. He did an excellent job with that. He really represented our department well. He has gone to Rocky Mount, I believe Salisbury, some other cities, and he is trying to make his way around the entire department. So I encourage you, and our battalion chiefs are going to be working with him to schedule, but I encourage you to make sure you and your company have time to spend with Captain Sutter. We are very fortunate to have him talking to everybody, and while he's in this light duty capacity, I want to try to do his best to talk to every person in this department. So in doing that, we have the key items we're working on. It's on the third page of your handout, and you've seen these before, but I want to put these back out to you again. Each of these we're working on, trying to move forward with in item by item. You'll see a number and then some bullets of things we're working on. Some are communications items. Some are through the training division. Chief Nix is working on with he and his staff to try to address some of those. As you know, we have made very good progress with ladder staffing. We've been working on that a long time. And thanks to Dave Coker, our local representative, union efforts, council's approval, we're stepping some of that up beginning of January for 2 companies. And we'll be working on 2 more for July. So we're beginning to make some progress in addressing that need as well. All the way down to radio straps. And so those items are there, and I think Captain Sutter is a great resource. I encourage you to hear from him, talk to him, and make sure he has a chance to talk to your crew as well. So with that, Chief Harms, we welcome you today. We're glad to have you here. We appreciate you being here and pulling time away from your duties in Phoenix. So welcome to Greensboro Fire.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. It's nice to hear. I sit on NFPA 1500 and NFPA 1710, and one of the struggles with 1710 always is about staffing, and so we get a lot of questions about staffing. And most departments that we talk to are going the opposite way, where they're cutting staffing, and to hear that you guys are up staffing your ladders, even slowly, but you're able to put those people in there is a huge thing. So I didn't expect to see my picture. That looks like my dad, so that means I'm getting really old now. I've been with Phoenix almost 28 years. Started as a volunteer combination department before that, and then had an opportunity to go out to Phoenix in 1986. And I just kind of won the lottery, even though at the moment I hadn't even realized what I had done then. So I've been out there. If you look at most of my career, the first whole portion of it was on the operations side. So I spent time as a firefighter, company officer, battalion chief. We have a thing of a shift commander that runs the city as far as the operational side of it. Chief Khan promoted me to assistant chief, and then I was able to be the operations chief for about 4 years. And if you look at my background, it's perfect. I spent some time in special operations, did some FEMA deployments and stuff. But we were having an executive staff meeting one day, and you could always tell when he was nervous about something. He would be kind of flustered. He's going through stuff and moving things around. And we're going through the meeting. He goes, "Hey, I just got to talk about it. I'm going to move everybody." And we're all like pushing away from the table. "Well, what do you mean? We'll be moving out in the department." He goes, "No, I'm moving you guys around inside here." And sure enough, he looks at me and goes, "Hey, you're going to personnel." And I was like, "What the hell did I do?" And the guy that was the personnel chief got the ops spot. And so we had a little battle all the time that would go on between the two of us, and we would say, "Hey, if it wasn't for operations, we wouldn't need personnel." And he said, "If it wasn't for operations, personnel would be a really damn good job, because you guys are really screwed up out there." So we flipped positions at that time, and then I spent about 3.5 years as the personnel chief. As we kind of go through here, we've got some basic stuff that we're going to talk about, but really what I want to be able to do is not go through and talk about, you know, this is the philosophy or this is what's going on, but what I want to talk about is what things went well for us and what things go bad for us, and why did they go bad. And being able to go through and look at those things and talk about them. And I hope what I can do is at least put some of that out to you. And I think a lot of the stuff as we go through today isn't going to be anything new that you're going to sit here and go, "Oh my God, I never even thought of that before." But maybe it's just an approach, just a thought, and hopefully some stuff that we can build upon as we go through. If you look at events, and this is in the city of Phoenix, and we'll spend a lot of time beating up the city of Phoenix. City Hall will call. And City Hall, the city manager sits up on about the 12th floor and overlooks the city, and he'll see smoke out there. And his big thing is to call us and ask us, "Hey, what's going on?" And at one point he actually called and asked if we were going to evacuate City Hall for a fire that was like about 1.5 miles away. So they have really no clue of what goes on. But if you look at the events here, we have a house up there in which we actually had a firefighter that got burned on. This was an illegal transfer station that was in Phoenix. We can burn down about a city block and not really get much influence or much. The media will be very positive on us. But if you look at the media today, what things do you see in the media about the fire service?
Negative.
What type of negative, though?
Cheating, theft, failure to respond to a call, help a person. Just, you know, they're looking at stuff to really get headlines.
It is. It is. And if you look at those headlines, a lot of it isn't about our operations. Or if it is about our operations, it's usually some pretty positive stuff. On the bottom one down there, they beat us up because we hadn't inspected that location, and basically what they were doing is they were setting up, doing a transfer type deal. They were transferring what was supposed to be oil from used oil over into another tank, and really what they were doing, they were transferring just anything and everything. And the guy even knew that the pump he was using was not appropriate. So they beat us up on that, and we were able to come back and say, with the budget cuts, one of the first things to go was what? Fire prevention inspections. And so we had cut back on all that portions of it, and we were lucky because of this event to turn it around and get people back into fire prevention. If you look at the fire service, what's going well in the fire service right now? So when I'm quiet, that's your opportunity. I know it's a little different, you know. What's going well?
Overall, we're still making citizens happy, and they're still meeting their needs when they call 911.
Yeah. If you look at it, they pick up the phone probably within about 4 to 5 minutes. 3 or 4 members will show up and solve their problems. Generally, how is the fire service rated as far as trustworthy? Number 1. What else is going well?
Still a good interest in becoming a firefighter, so we don't have any problem with people applying.
Yeah, you should see Halloween at my house. It was 10 to 1, firefighters to cops. Is there any ex-cops in here? Where is it? There's always one. They're pointing at you. A lot of interest. What else?
The cops are screwed up making us look good.
You know, that's a good thing in Phoenix. Maybe it's the same here. Is we screw up, but if we wait about 6 days, they'll do something stupid. They'll shoot somebody, arrest somebody, do something along the way there. There's a lot of good stuff that's going on. What changes are happening?
Get more studies for firefighter safety.
What are some of those?
Well, this stuff with the flow paths.
Have you guys been looking at any of that stuff? Some of it is, as you look at it, kind of goes into the face of what we've always traditionally done. Some of it is stuff that we've actually done, but we've just never ever gone out and looked at it and made the changes. In the very beginning, when that first came out, what was some of the feelings?
It defied the current thinking that it was a paradigm shift, so to speak. 50-cent word.
50-cent words.
Not being aggressive.
Oh, there we go. What's the aggressive part? What is it saying you should do? Or what are they saying maybe should be an option? Get it from the outside. Do we do that very often?
Not the way we were trained.
Not the way we were trained. So I sit on the UL advisory board, and it's funny that that came out, and it was coming from NIST and UL that you have to hit. You're going to start, what was it, hard from the yard or something like that. We're going to fight from the exterior, and that was really never any of the stuff that came out. Was the expectation that we were going to start fighting fires from the exterior. But what it was that if you have an environment, the fire's coming out of that environment. The ability to put water on the fire does what? It makes it better. You know, that was the biggest thing through all the experiments that they have done. The ability to put water on it makes it better. The other thing is we learned you're probably not doing what with fire? Probably not pushing fire. But I know when I first came on the job, you never opened the nozzle till when? Till I saw the fire, because we didn't want to change the environment inside there. We always ventilated everything. If the fire was pushing you down to the floor, you waited for ventilation, and then you were going to attack the fire. Really, all UL and NIST are saying is, if you're in there and it's hot, do what? Put water on the fire. If it's blowing out the front of it, put water on the fire. We always said attack the fire from where? Sunburn. I think what we've learned, at least what I have learned and what we're teaching in our department is if you got an opportunity to put water on that thing, attack that fire. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on as far as changes. I think there's a lot of good stuff. It'll take a little while for us to kind of adapt to it. I think each department needs to look at it, think about our deployment, think about how we manage the fire ground, what we do every day, then we have to be open to it. To be honest, in our department we're talking about, I think we're on the front end of the way. I think there's going to be a lot of changes that'll be coming. If you look at those changes that happen, who's probably the leaders of those changes in your department? Where does it usually start at? Well, maybe before that. Who starts it usually?
Training.
Training will put it out there, but I think, at least me, in our department, training will bring things forward. The line guys will be seeing things that are going on, but really whether it succeeds or fails is a lot of about you all, I think, as company officers. Make the decision to listen to it. Go back to the station, you can throw your feet up and go, well, that was just bullshit. I don't know where the hell, they've never seen a fire down there at the training academy before. I'm not real sure what they're thinking down there. Or you can go back and say, hey, this is what, at least what they're bringing forward. Let's look at it and let's discuss and let's decide what's working for us and what's not. As we move away from the fire side of it and we start thinking about personnel management, and I love talking about fire, but today we'll try not to talk too much about that portion of it. What are some of the challenges for you all when you're either a leader or you're a manager in today's fire service? Social media, is that a problem? From here, are you on Facebook? You got your Facebook? You got your... I was going to look for your... He's got a flip phone over here still. We'll talk about social media. We've had a little problem in Phoenix with social media along the way. We've got a couple slides on that there. What else is changing?
Different generations have different thought processes.
What do you mean by that? Damn kids.
I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like they deserve this job and don't have to earn it. Or that they feel like they should graduate rookie school and be right in the company officer's position the next shift.
What else?
You gotta get them to buy in.
Getting people to buy in. What do you think the average age of your rookie school is going to be? When's it start?
January 2nd.
January 2nd. What's the average age?
It's probably gonna be somewhere around 25, 26.
Who's our oldest guy in here? You look like you've kept yourself in physical shape. Why don't we hire 50-year-olds? What's that? It's a young dude. Their body parts are falling apart. We'd hire people like us and we'd be perfect, but their body parts are all falling apart. They won't last very long. I think the generation that's coming up behind me, for all of us that's coming in, is a phenomenal generation. And I think they will do well. I think that they're more towards education, change. That's kind of what their whole life is. The other thing is we don't have any other options. They are the ones we're going to hire that are going to come in. Now what we've found is that we give them a stack of books when they come in that's about that tall. And they've asked for, instead of the books, what do they want? I want a tablet. Can we download all this stuff onto there? We're like, no, but we'll give you this thing here. Do they know how to run a saw though?
No.
Yeah. Who did their lawn for them at their homes? A fireman. A fireman. An older fireman. Love the snow, everything else. Their dad?
Probably their mom.
So what do we have to do in the Recruit Academy that may have been different than in the past? Yeah. What do they know what a choke is on a saw? We went out and now what they do is they deliver telephone poles to our academy. We have them lined up out back, and we take them out there and we have to teach them how to chop onto a telephone pole and what's appropriate, how to run a saw. Choke the saw out and tell them, hey, now you need to start it. And those basic things that you think about for all of us, that is just, I say the choke, and every one of you have in your mind, at least on our saws, the choke that you pull out or you push it in. They have very little knowledge. Once we have taught them that, do they do well? Yeah. What about building construction? As I say right now is that we have I'm looking for one. If we had a soffit across the front of there, does everybody have the same image that comes up into their mind? Above the kitchen sink, you have a soffit that's there, there's some lights, you're talking about fire extension from the stove into the soffit where it's going. A lot of people before that, I won't say that, a lot of people before they got in the fire service in the past did what? Construction, manual labor, they were somewhat into the trades. Today, most people are doing what? A lot of people are coming out with school, more and more people have education coming in, video games. Now, if we want them to program our phone, that's absolutely perfect, but so what we've had to do, we take now in the academy, we take 4 days, we put them on buses and we send them out in the community with a fire captain and an engineer, and they go and they look at construction. And so when we say soffit, we actually break it down and say, this is what we're talking about. You all are in the same, I'm just guessing, before long you're going to think I'm a fireman with you, is that if you have a new guy on you or a new female on your apparatus with you, you're after a fire, you're doing a critique, and you're starting to look at things, we all need to stop and think, are they understanding? Because they'll stand there and do what?
Yeah.
Nod their head, but not a clue. And then it becomes very frustrating that, hey, we just talked about this the other day, and you're calling down to the academy and say, hey, they just don't get it. They'll get it, but a lot of it is responsibility back onto us as far as that. If you think about those management challenges, that's one of them that's going on. Look around the room, though. Think about yourself, though, and what type of challenge you were as far as when you were a firefighter. I think of some of the things that we might have done. When I was hired, we took over the ambulance business in the city of Phoenix. So we spent 16 weeks in the academy. You spend the next 9 months on probation. You roll around the 3 stations, and they didn't put you on an ambulance. And so I was 23 years old, off probation, on an ambulance with another member, the same amount of time on the job, and we did some stuff that probably wasn't very appropriate. But those are the challenges that we create back into those things, and the things that you all of us in here will have to be able to manage. If we switch now and we start to look out there, and you said it over there, is what's happening in the news media. What's happening in the NFL these days? Raise hands, no shoot. Yeah. And if you think about how many NFL teams are there? 32 teams. Each team has about 58 members on the team. There's just under 2,000 members in the NFL. And those 3 people tainted the view of the NFL.
Yep.
Could that happen in the fire service in Greensboro?
Yes.
Yeah. If you go back in time a little bit and something happened off duty, was the police able to help you through that event? Let's just say you get pulled over for a DUI. What was in the past? What would happen?
Have somebody come pick you up, they take you home and sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. Well, in Phoenix, what would happen is it was pretty much known. You call the shift commander. We're not going back that far. Myself as a shift commander, your phone would ring. There's never anything good at night when the phone rings about 1 o'clock in the morning. And in their system, the on-duty, on their side shift commander would call, the night duty officer would call and say, hey, we've got one of your, actually got 4 of them, but one of them we're going to arrest because of driving together type stuff. But if you can get out here and get him, he's all yours. What happens today? Yeah, they'll call us once they're processing them and say, you can come pick them up. And you can start into there. And I'm not saying that the old side was right or wrong. It has just really changed as far as the environment. What do they do with each other? The police. Yeah. And if I watch the police department, I watch all of you come in together, and everybody knows each other, and everybody's happy, talking to each other, what's going on. You ever watch policemen when they all come into the room? Or when supervisors come into the room, there's a division that happens. It's just a different culture in that group. But by looking at the NFL, we can tell what, if you think about the fire service, just what's happening in there. Now, in Miami, when Richie Incognito was in the locker room and things, what was his defense? It's always been that way. Because his biggest thing was the hazing of the younger members that were coming in. It's the way we've always done it. If you think of all three of those guys right now, what do they all have in common though? Yeah, is any of them playing right now? None of them. Is any of them collecting money right now? So I think for all of us, that's the other side of it, is we can protect our members and make sure that our members aren't in trouble, because once they lose this job, things spiral out of control and go downhill. The ability to keep them employed and keep them out of trouble is one of our main goals as far as all of us, as far as personnel management. We'll talk a lot about Phoenix. You see the top one up there, council member wants DPS, that's the Department of Public Safety or the state police. During my time, we had 3 investigations by the police that came in from the outside agency coming in to investigate the fire department. How do you think those went? Not too good. Because again, what does the police look for? What's the rule? And did you follow the rule? It's all black and white. Now, for all of us, we'd always say there's a little bit of gray around everything, but for that, it's all black and white. The other one you don't like to see is that there is a sexual harassment case, prompt settlement. We'll talk more about those kind of go through those. We'll also talk about some drug problems that we've had. We're all not screwed up, believe me. So everything you're going to see, you think we're kind of screwed up. We also had some problems keeping our engine 9 on its tires there. Do we all have rules and regulations? Yeah. For each department, if you think about it, our rules and regulations give us our guidelines for our expected actions or the way that we're not supposed to act. Ours are very short, self-discipline, highly productive. We have some shells. And then we have some things that members shall not. Where do most SOPs and rules come from? Past experience. Most of the time, is it something that was really good? Why do you think fighting is on there? Stealing. Sexual activity while on duty. That one was added since my career has started on there. Is that we have those that come forward. You all have those also, that we have an expectation. The city has an expectation. And again, if you think about an event, when an event happens, that's what we're going to be held to. Is what is the rules say that we're supposed to do? What did we do? What didn't we do? Each department, we have a culture within our department. For us, we wrote ours down, much as the chief, I think I got a slide of his mission statement. We have what's called the way, which is the way we're supposed to act, a customer service guide. We also have a safety guide. How would you describe the culture here in Greensboro? Pardon me?
Political, I can't even say the word, politically correct.
Okay.
Our city strives to do that way.
What about within this department? What are some of the positive cultural things that you have?
Services strong.
Strong customer service? Are you aggressive? Great service? Do people want to work here? Yeah. Why does everybody want to come to the big city? Pardon me?
Fight more fire.
Fight more fire.
Resources.
You have great resources, great opportunities. How do you treat each other?
We give each other a hard time.
Is that part of the culture?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So where's the line? So is that, I mean, the culture side of it, we tried to write it, but what you're describing is the same as Phoenix. So how do you know where the line is?
You know when you cross it.
So when you cross it, how do you know when you crossed it?
Chief calls you the office.
Most of the time somebody will say what? Stop it. If they say stop, what is our tendency? A little bit harder now. Then where do you end up? Oh, Todd speaking on Greensboro. And look what happened there. Does our culture have to change sometimes? Is it okay to give people a hard time? Yeah, that is part of the culture. The portion of where is that line? We can start doing some things up here. We had a problem, and I'll have to compliment your chief for being proactive. We had to hire who the city wanted to hire to come in and do basically environmental training. And every member in the department had to go through that. So if you can imagine an outside consultant coming in and talking, had some offices and some stuff. So he asked the question to a female, where does harassment start? And she said, at penetration. We had to stop the program because the guy at that point got very upset, and believe us, we sat for a long time in meetings being very nice at the table. We'll have our people under control, sir. We'll get them under control right away. We actually put at the beginning of the class, please just don't say anything. Just sit there and listen. I think if we went and we showed some things up there, we all know pretty much when we grew up as kids and what was instilled in us on what's right and what's wrong and watching people's reactions. When we see that it's going out of bounds, what do we have to do? You got to stop it. If you do anything walking out of here, if you guys can walk out of here with guard your words and actions, and when you see something that's starting to go out of bounds, what starts to happen in your stomach? You know what's going on at that point, and at that you just need to say, knock it off. Usually what will they say?
We're just funning.
We're just funning. You were the, what's your name? What's your name?
Sorry?
Well, your name?
Steve.
Sorry. Steve. Come on, Steve. You were the worst. You're damn right. This is easy, man. This is like fishing in a bucket right now. Hey, you come to every class. But you can say, you know what? Times have changed. Knock it off. Now, as you're driving down the road about a week later, what will you have to do again? You have to turn around and look at them. Well, boys, knock it off.
Dealing with the children.
Pardon me?
Like controlling children.
It is. Just don't whip them with a stick. Just don't hit them. Yeah, that's not good. We're going to move you to Phoenix. Is that okay? Do you like the heat?
Oh,
The chief went through and talked about your vision, some operating priorities. We're going to take those, put them together with Phoenix with some of the cornerstones. You guys, again, this is all stuff that you all know. You don't need to do those portions of it. But we'll look at each one of these and then talk about how we manage these, or how do we provide leadership. The first one is make a commitment, being a leader in the fire service, a commitment to the public, to the department, and to the other members.
So what's going on today?
I'm having a really hard time breathing.
Okay. Our partner is going to get your vitals.
Okay.
See what's going on. So you start having a hard time breathing?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm concerned because I'm 8 months pregnant.
8 months, okay. What hospital do you go to with your pregnancy?
St. Joe's.
St. Joe's, okay. How long have you had a hard time breathing?
I was driving right down here on Thomas 5 minutes ago, and I just pulled over.
Okay. Well, like I say, he's going to take some vitals and get some oxygen on you, and we'll see what's going on.
Okay.
That's Dana. I'd love to. That'd be great.
Who mentioned cell phones before? Do we ever become complacent? Was that call an emergency? Who was it an emergency for? Her. What was it to him?
Routine of it all.
Routine? Could it have been a distraction to his day? If you look at, what percentage of the calls you go on are EMS calls? 70% of them? Out of those, how much of those are just social service?
Depends on which side of the family.
We used to say that a lot. I think that the more that we look at the medical side of it and the business we're in, a large percentage of what we do every day is the social service side of it. Has the fire service changed? Who's our oldest guy in here? Who's got the most time on the job?
Well, Bobby's got me a little bit.
Has the fire service changed?
Absolutely.
What portions of it has?
What we respond to. When I first came on, we didn't write any medical calls. We could have a medical call down the street, and the fire truck never left the station. The one time we moved the fire truck out, we went on a fire call. And now, that's 68% of our business is writing the medical calls, or the assist plan calls.
What else do you do today that you didn't do before?
Probably a lot of things.
Hazmat?
Special ops change.
Special ops. The reality is what do we do a lot of and a little of?
Very little firefighting compared to the others.
That's just the portion of it. Which part do we like better? Yeah, we all like the fire, but it's part of the job. What's the problem with him right there? What are some of the issues that you think are going on?
He's not treating that woman the way he wanted his mother or his wife or his sister treated. That's the problem.
His supervisor's never taking care of the cell phone issues.
So on this time, what's going on is his ability, what he said, that commitment that he said, when we all showed up, we're going to provide what? You guys said it. What was one of the things that's going really good here? You do what every day very well? Customer service. When we fall below the standard, what do we have to do? We got to address it. To address it at this event is pretty easy to say, man, what's going on? But as far as company officers or command officers, how do we be proactive in addressing that?
Set expectations up front.
But by doing what, though? What do you do?
Explain to them what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
What's acceptable, what's not acceptable, lead by example, have conversations and talk about this is what we do. How long does that call, your average EMS call lasts how long? 15 minutes probably at the most. Ours are on the backside, we take them to the hospital, but we average about 14 minutes on scene. For 14 minutes, your expectation is what? Patient care. You're going to provide the best care possible for that patient, or a TRT call, or hazmat call, or whatever it is. I need your 100% focused right here. Now, today with cell phones and everything else, I need your focus when you're responding on the call. I don't need you on the back videotaping it for me. I need you listening to what's going on. I don't need you to tweet or Facebook or anything else while we're going to the call about what's happening. I need your focus for that 15 minutes or for that event while you're responding there. Again, I think setting expectations, talking about those things, we always talk about new company officers will come in and they're going to say, hey, we're going to sit down in the morning and I'm going to call my crew together and this is what we're going to talk about. In Phoenix, we really don't do that. If you don't know by the time you get out to the station of what's expected of you each and every day, we'll sit down and talk about, hey, what's on the schedule today? What training is coming up? What do we need to do to get prepared? But again, setting expectations when you go out and sit down with them going, hey guys, this is the reason why we're here. These are the things when we talk about we're going to provide great service every single day. These are some of the things that we need to be able to do. What's some positive leadership behaviors?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. What else?
Try to present stuff in a positive way. Like I say, don't go back and bash everything that's
Going on.
Right, try to support it.
Don't ask someone to do something you don't want to do yourself.
Teach others to lead.
Teach others. Is that probably one of the best things that we can do for this organization?
But you gotta cultivate it. It's not gonna happen.
How do we do that? You hear me say that probably a lot here.
It's a process. I mean, it starts, starts at the station and going through the training division and over time.
It's our responsibility for every member that's sitting on our apparatus to find out, hey, what's your goal? And then do whatever we can to support them. If somebody wants to be an engineer, how can we support them to be a best engineer? Hey, I'm gone and you need to move up to be the skip today. What am I going to be able to do? What things can we do to be able to take you forward? Probably the only one that's also on there is the ability to be a good listener. How am I going to be a good listener to my crews and what's going on? And you'll see when we get down a little bit farther, sometimes it isn't about what's happening in the station or what's happening at work, but it's what's happening off duty. And how is that effect coming back to the station as a company officer? How do I manage those?
The cell phone issue. I think
Uh-oh.
on a call, that's pretty obvious, and I don't think you're going to get much. Now, when you're having a class in the station, I'm finding some people thinking they can talk on the phone or text on the phone, and I can listen to you and do this, and almost aggressively defend what they're doing, and like you don't have any reason, you don't have any ability to restrict my ability to do this. I'm still listening, and I find that hard to even comprehend, but someone just acting like I'm crazy for even raising it as a thing. And then you say, well, someone right out of training and say, well, you able to do training? Well, yeah, they didn't have any policies to do training. And I know the training officers enough to know that they didn't sit around and text during the training classes.
That's right, because their cell phones aren't allowed with them when they're in training.
So what do you guys want to have happen?
And I'm sure we can certainly address it. It just kind of boggles my mind that they can't comprehend. You're having a class not that long, and most of it is focused just for them. The other guys know this stuff, going with the pump pressures and things. It's for them and the questions they've asked. And all of a sudden you look over and they're just kind of texting along.
I think that goes back, you asked a question earlier about challenges with leadership, and you're kind of, is when you have to go against the cultural norm, like the things that are going on in society or the things that maybe a younger generation are bringing in. That's a huge challenge for leadership, is you got to be the bad guy, the one that goes in the face of the cultural norm.
But are you the bad guy?
You gotta figure out creative ways.
In some sense you are, because when you even try to address it logically, say, listen, this is just discrimination. But what if everybody say, well, do you want the department to come up with a policy? Well, they couldn't do that.
We don't want to have you saw our rules. We used to have a policy manual that if we kept on going was going to be about that tall.
Right.
That said everything in there. If my wife's at home and she's ready to go into labor and she's texting me and I'm sitting here, is that okay? Yeah. So if you have an emergency or something that you need to manage, go ahead and manage it. Now, I have done it, is that you've watched somebody and they're Facebook and they're doing whatever. Hey, if you need to do that, why don't you go out in the hall? And at that moment, that uncomfortableness comes across them and you'll watch them put it down. If it's an issue and you know it's going to be an issue, what should you do before it becomes an issue? Address it. Hey, if you guys, I need your attention probably for about 3 hours today. If you have an emergency or you need something on your phone, why don't you go out in the hall and go ahead and address it? But I need your attention just during this period of time.
I guess the frustrating part was in trying to talk and just trying to help to educate them, but then as aggressively as they were defending it, and then saying, listen, our choices is either we put it up and do something, or else we're going to come up with a hard and fast policy. And they say they couldn't take them away from everybody. They wouldn't put up with it. I'm thinking, you don't understand the process here. It's
All right. Now, for the most part, everybody probably in here, who doesn't have a cell phone? It has become our way to communicate. I know in Phoenix we don't want to have a policy about your cell phone, whether you're going to use it or not going to use it. But we do a lot of things where we ask people to turn off your cell phone, turn it to vibrate before. If you have something that you need to do or you need something on your cell phone, we need you to go out into the hallway. The cultural side of it, now I'm going to start spitting. The cultural side of it, somewhere along the way said that was okay. So again, when you start talking about these things and you start talking about the culture, if you don't want it to be that way, and that's your thing, and you're saying, hey, I'm not real sure what happens in other classes, but for my class, this is what I expect you to do. And be able to do. Now, other people may be, now I've got 2 teenage kids, well, a teenager and a 20-year-old, and they live on that thing. And I'm surprised that in school it has changed, that they can carry their phones now in school and stuff like that, which is very different. The side about being a bad guy, sometimes being a manager, is it going to be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
But when you set boundaries, and someone said it's like taking care of kids. If I set the boundaries and I hold them accountable to the boundaries, and I hold myself accountable to the boundaries, now we know where we're at. And I think a lot of times it is uncomfortable. I asked the chief the other day if you guys had individual company officer rooms with locks on the door, so when you do that, you can go lock yourself in and they can't put you. Chief, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to the fire service has always done a great job of teaching people, but we've not done a real good job of developing people. And there's a difference. You know, you're teaching people to do tasks, and we do that well. And a guy's been a great firefighter. He's studied. He becomes a company officer, but he's never had to deal with personnel issues. So that's where, as we're doing today, we are starting to develop people to help with those changes. And that's the cultural change. We just haven't done a good job of that.
That's why we made all these videos. I've got like about 14 of them. I'll give them all to you if you want. And we show the video just to be able to have that conversation. Is what is uncomfortable? What is that cultural type stuff?
And it's the first time it comes up, it's just so shocking. And once it happens, yeah, you can preempt it, you can talk about it, have discussions. Sometimes that thing jumps up, and the first time you see it, you gotta be kidding me. We're gonna have this conversation.
Yeah.
And Captain Stewart, you're not the only person. I think it's probably everybody here. I mean, I'm at the same point. And I think it gets back to the generational differences too. Because like you said, in school, they've always had it. They've always messed with it. They've always done it. And they expect to continue to do that. And for me, that's unacceptable when I'm in a class or when I'm teaching a class. It's not respect for whoever's teaching it, not for the other people in the class. So
It's like,
it's tough. It's
who
a
are
tough
you to
talk.
restrict my access? I can do this.
Right.
You can't do anything about it.
Even though we have a policy, and you can print the policy out and show them that, and they still want to show disbelief.
That issue, not the cell phone, that issue is. How about we just watch this disrespect and conduct them?
Well, then there's the next side of it, exactly. And being able to say, no, I am going to restrict for this class right now. I don't know what the rest of the department's going to do about it, but for my class for right now, if you need to talk on that thing, you're having an emergency, go out in the hall. And if you're not in the class, then I can't give you credit for being in the class then. But it is definitely different. Our cell phones going away. I think they're a little bit, it's kind of like computers. I think they're here to stay. You heard it here from me. The ability to manage them, and I think in my mind, you saw all of our rules. There's 20 of them. Writing procedures suck. I mean, I write procedures for fireground activity, but for those type of things, then I think then you're way out of bounds. And then, like you said, I can't believe our recruits don't even bring them into the academy. They leave them into their car type stuff. Anything else?
But don't you think, and people might disagree with me.
That's always like that question when it comes out. I may disagree with you.
When I first came here, and there's positives and there's negatives, but if we go back to the way we now structure our fire stations. The old fire stations, you had one bunk from everybody. You had to deal with each other. In that dealing with each other, there was a lot of teaching going on because the engineer would do the dryer FPO at that time and sit back there. He's watching TV. Even though he might watch TV, well, I went on such and such fire. You gained the knowledge. We ate together.
More interaction.
When the interaction was there. The newer generation, also the way we're going, we're putting cubicles in. We're giving they got their own cubicle, their own bathroom. They don't even have to be, used to, everybody took the same showers together. That's positive.
What I'm saying is, don't that think about penetration.
Cultural, going back to cultural change, it's different now. The younger folks come on, everybody gets a trophy. They don't have to deal.
Everybody gets a trophy. I like that one.
Right. Or used to, if you want to play a video game, you had to go to a big facility. Now they can sit and do the same thing, sit in their home by themselves. They don't interact. Now we're back to a culture change now that we in the fire service, like I said, there's positive and negative, that we build now. We build separate cubicles. They don't have to even do this.
there's companies that don't even associate
They don't even see each other.
or form a unity because they're so,
And
on
with
the
that,
weekends, they go their separate way.
teaching goes away, or the influence that the company officer, either in the senior firefighter, has on the younger, because when you're sitting around dealing with each other, eating together in the TV room, you have to deal with each other at what time the TV goes off, or, you know, how hot or cold the room is. There's a lot going on. There's also the interchange of information of past experiences. Fire service, a lot goes on with those experiences when you move up and you drive on call. Sometimes you might know how to handle this call, but hey, I remember Captain Marks mentioned this, that he ran this 10 years ago. Well, we're missing all that. There's a whole area of teaching
There's a side of fellowship that is definitely different. And we've done the same thing, is that we all slept in a bunk room together. The company officer was always in the room next to him. The problem with the bunk room was, who's the worst snorer in here? You knew you had to get down before, everybody's pointing now. You had to get down. You're all pointing.
That's a big one, man.
But I think we lost something there.
Well, it's different. If you look at the, I don't know how many females do you guys have? The building divided up, it's definitely different today. So that's the way that it is going. So if it's going to be that way, what things can you do as company officers to instill that back into your crews? Because I would say the crews that don't eat together, they leave, they go their own way, is that I would look right back to the company officer who's managing that crew and look at him and say, what are you doing to bring this crew together? And what things, and what's his personalities, and what's some of his traits like?
And that not only is with the crew, and I think we're going away from too, is older fire stations, they would bring families in on Saturdays and Sundays. If you want to know a lot of times what's going on with your people, you go back to their home life. So if you don't have a relationship with their family, so that's something else.
So how do you, so what, that's definitely a cultural change. How do you manage that? What things what would you want him to do?
Sometimes you got to be the one that steps out and say, hey, Saturday, bring your friends and I'm going to do the cooking today. Or, I mean, leadership comes in all different forms.
Do you guys eat together? Most do. Do you read the paper together?
You mean the internet?
The internet. Yeah. You sit at the thing and look at it. Does the station still get papers?
Yes.
Most of them still do. I think there's opportunities, and that's really, I'll be honest with you, what you have to do is look for what those opportunities are. What are the things that we're going to do together? For us, a big cultural thing in our department is that we eat together, and when you're done eating, the senior guy, until the senior guy, not rank, but the senior guy that's there, until he's ready to get up, everybody has to sit at the table. So the new guy always wants to do what as soon as he's done eating?
Right.
Wash dishes. We make them sit there until everybody's done eating, till the senior guy says, hey, it's time to get up. What's that? Do you? And then everybody gets up and do those things together. The company officer sitting out. The other thing that is huge in our department is PT. Is that everybody PT, we want everybody to PT together. I know that out of 65 fire stations, there's some of them that are exactly as you're describing, but our culture is a lot on the other side of it. Because we pull companies together that can do activities together, they can do activities in the station together. They have the ability to do those things, and a part of it pulls everybody together as crews. We have very few single resource stations. It's almost every one of our stations either has an engine, a truck, or an engine and a squad, or we call our ambulances rescues. So multi-company stations just typically have more activity of people going around doing things, stuff happening in there. But I think the part that you're talking about definitely is a shift in the culture. Thanksgiving just went by. The Thursday, Friday, and Saturday has always traditionally in our department been huge days where all the family comes in. And on Thursday they cook. Whatever's left over on Friday is the families. Everybody brings all their leftovers to the fire stations and everybody gets together and do that. One of the things that we used to do all the time and what we've gotten away from is picnics. We used to have a department picnic, and I mean, 1,600 members, you'd get 500 or 600 members that would show up. But what the union did, the union started doing a thing is where they, typically for the union, we have a taco bust, which is just members that come. They do a retiree breakfast 3 times a year. Retirees and members all come. But one of the things that they do every year at Christmas is they go out and they rent out one of those little amusement parks. And it's for the family, and the whole family is able to come to it. So I think that, again, I guess I'm saying I think, that company officer's there doing that. But I think that if you go up to the next step to the battalion chief, is the battalion chief has the ability, he really knows what's going on in the stations. Who are your really strong captains? Who are the station you walk into and everybody's sitting there and everybody's having a good time? Or you walk into a station and you can't find anybody. And you have to say, man, that's really different. Is that our culture has changed here? Where is everybody? What are you guys doing to be able to get along? What do you do? How do you guys interact together? Are you on the same page? So the battalion chief, as a supervisor, has a huge role in knowing his companies, knowing them, knowing what's going on in those stations. That anywhere along there? I think the other thing is just changing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like the crew I have now, they love being together. I mean, they're cutting up, they're picking at each other. But I've also worked at another station where I had to go buy ice cream just to get them to come into the kitchen. I was just filling in for a day, but I went and bought ice cream just so they would sit in the same room.
When they did that, were they happy then?
They were for about an hour, and then they were gone.
Take the good stuff, though, and look at those opportunities. If you were there every shift, you think you could change them? Let me say, I was going to say, you would try to. That's the best that we can. And I guess that's the negative side of it. Looking here, and we don't need to go through those. One other thing that I'd like all you to be able to do is just as you're driving down the road, think about how am I as a supervisor? And not as a supervisor, as a friend, as a leader. What things am I doing well? What things can I do to improve? What things do I do a good job communicating with my members? Do I do a good job of following what the expectations of the department? Because someone said it, we're all role models. Everything that we do is that crew's looking up to. And for those crews that are in that station where they're not interacting, they'll start to think this is just the norm. And will some of those people be company officers somewhere down the road? Yeah. So what am I doing to be able to have a positive influence out there? And then some days, it's just tough to be a supervisor.
I don't know about you, but I hate Mondays.
Some days you just got to spend that 24 hours at that shift and just get out of there. You know he's got a tie on. You know he was the supervisor. Being accountable leaders and leaders take responsibility for their success. They take accountability for the department.
Hey guys, I'm here rolling in today, driving for you. Whatever you work, dude. Glad to be here. We got some better drivers here today. Yeah, I'm gonna pull it out, check my lights, check my pop down and all that.
Got his driving gloves on.
Hey, slow down a little bit. Slow down. You're good.
Do we know the rules or our expectations for driving? If you think about the culture, you think about sometimes in stations you got the leader and you got some informal leader. As far as an engineer, where did he learn that from? Yeah, someone, he was in the back, someone else was driving, and what was that considered?
Accepted practice.
Yeah, that's the accepted practice. What's the problem with that?
So they kill it.
Did somebody kill himself or someone else that's on that crew?
For the public.
Or the public that's out there? As a supervisor, when we're out of bounds, is it sometimes difficult to deal with that engineer? I mean, he's way out of there. What's the hard part sometimes of dealing with them?
They don't see anybody doing anything wrong.
Don't see they're doing anything wrong.
Anybody in any danger. They've got total control of the truck. I got this.
You're pushing through the floorboards trying to get them to stop.
White knuckling the whole way there.
White knuckling. And then what do you have to do for the next 23 hours? Put them in the back. You have to do what with them?
Babysitting.
Pardon me?
Babysitting.
You got to babysit them. Our work environment is different than anybody else's that's out there. Is in most work environments, if I'm going to do something, I bring you in, I sit you down in my office, I tell you to quit doing that, and then where do I send you? Back to your job site. What do you have to do for the next 23 hours? You got to live with them. You got to eat with them. You got to sleep with them. You used to have to shower with them. What's he going to do when you tell him to slow down? You said it over there first. What's the first response to him? I got it. I've been driving this way for 20 years. I got shirts older than you are, son. I've been driving this way. Then you tell him to do what? Slow down. For the next 23 hours, what's he doing now? Next call you go on. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have to tell him again, do what? Knock it off and drive the way you're supposed to. For the rest of the shift, oh, we got a captain in the station now. He's in charge. He's going to be chirping at your head then. Next shift when he comes back, what's he like? Yeah, he's the same. Oh, let's see who's going to be here. Does he like it to be uncomfortable like that? Not really. And about 2 or 3 shifts later, will he ever say, hey, I'm sorry, I was driving too fast? Nah, he's never going to do it. Will he control his driving? Hopefully he will. But in about 6 months, or about 3 months, what are you going to have to do again? You're going to have to deal with it. So that's where somebody said before of it being sometimes uncomfortable, or you're feeling like you truly have to be that supervisor. Unfortunately, when we took the test, the department expects you to do what? Be the supervisor. Is it a different from being their friends?
Yes.
I think one of the hardest, there's 2 transitions for me. Being a firefighter to company officer was a hard transition. And I had 6 years on the job, so I was a very young company officer promoting and making that transition from being in the backseat out of control to being the boss. I look back at some of the stuff that I did, some of the stuff that I accepted, and I just my immaturity at that time shows through on that. The other one was when I went to an assistant chief. I had never been on staff, and all of a sudden I was in charge. I was quite interested at first, but that I learned really quick on that one. But at a certain point in time, what do you have to be? You got to be the boss. And for most of the time, most of your shifts, do you have to be a boss? No. You show up, people know. We could go through and talk about expectations, but I can guarantee you after how many weeks here?
21.
21 weeks, they'll walk out of here and they know what's expected of them. They can show up, you'll train with them, develop people. It's that family atmosphere that's happening. You're developing that family atmosphere. really, I would guess you are a lot like us. Hey, during this day, we've got to get this much stuff done. This is what time we have to go do the training. The rest of the day, I'm open to do whatever you guys want to do. But there's a period of time where you have to be the boss. What happens when you're not the boss? You said it. Not only did we roll the engine, but we hit that car going through the intersection. 4:30 in the morning, they're dispatched on a... Oh, we're not wrecking fire engines or tearing doors out of fire stations going on med calls. They're dispatched on a reported structure fire. Engine 61 and engine 9 are at dead heat to 16th Street, and it's just north of 16th Street. They pull out of the station. There's an engine, a ladder, a BC, and an ambulance out of there. They pull out. The ladder pulls out in front of them, goes straight down Fairmont. They're going to go down to 7th and turn. They turn. They head right up 4th. What are they trying to do? They're going to beat the ladder. They get up to 4th. They turn on to Indian School. They take off on Indian School. Indian School and 7th Street has Opticom. They outrun the Opticom. They hit the intersection. What's he trying to do with the light in Opticom? Yeah, he's trying to just right through it. The guy's heading southbound on Indian School, and he's running the yellow. He has the right-of-way. They meet at the intersection. By the time we went to the hospital, took care of all of them, got back there, they'd already pulled the chip off of the transmission. They were doing 47 miles an hour when they hit the intersection. They had the red light. Guy heading southbound was doing 35 miles an hour. He had the green, or he had the yellow light, but he has the right of way going through there at that time. What was the good thing in this accident? Nobody was hurt bad. Everybody had what on? Everybody had their seatbelts on. They hit him. If you look right there, you heard the VA hospital, which is obviously had a lot of problems in Phoenix here recently. They got about 47 cameras that cover that intersection. So we went over there to look at the cameras to see, hoping what? We were hoping they had the green light.
The line of sight Opticom.
Line of sight Opticom. When we looked at it, they did not have it. You could tell right then they had a red light as they went through it. Who's responsible for that engine? The captain. As we went back through, and what was their reputation?
Best response time.
Great response times on fires. Aggressive company, wanted to be there, wanted to beat 61 in first. Who was part of the problem who was the problem on this event? Company officer. Because what was he doing? He was yelling in the front seat just as much as everybody else. We were lucky the guy that was in the car ended up with just some minor injuries. He actually told the police, yeah, my seatbelt would keep popping out. If you could look at the impact of that car, how he survived is just unknown. The bad side about it is he smoked marijuana, so he got a DUI out of it and lost his job with UPS because of that type stuff. So not only did we total his vehicle, he got a DUI out of it, plus he lost his job and his income at the same time. So if you look at a simple thing, was this the first time they'd ever done that? Not at all. That influence that we have as a company officer, and we can look at that thing and laugh about the way that guy's driving and everything, but if we don't control ourselves and those things that are out of bounds, unfortunately this is the outcome of it. Self-discipline, make good choices, positive outcomes.
Everything he wants. Stop. Hey Chief, what's up? Alright, drug test. Alright, everybody's got out their ID. Alright, we'll get there. Alright, we have a drug test.
Well, if he's got something going on, you both it out of here pretty quick.
All right, okay.
Honey, you need to call me back at the station in like 1 minute. Just play along with whatever I have to say. Just 1 minute, call me back.
Wrong machine, Janet. John Janet, 2-0.
Hello? Hey. What's going on? Are you there? Have you tried it? Have you tried to start it? Okay. I'm on my way. Diana's at the mall. She's outside JCPenney's and the car won't start. I gotta get over there.
All right, well, we got drug testing.
Alright, Kelly, her and Dalton out there in the heat, so. I'll be back as soon as I can. I'll try and make it back in time, okay?
If you knew Todd, the captain, that is his personality right there. There was no acting needed right there on that whole thing. Has our culture changed about drugs and alcohol? Yeah, Colorado. They just passed a law in Arizona that makes marijuana for medical reasons legal. And so we've actually had to stop our drug testing while we figure out what we can do and what we can't do as we kind of move through this thing. What effect does drugs and alcohol have on our members? If you go back, and I'll go back maybe about 10 or 15 years in our department, when someone came in hungover, what would we do?
Hide them.
Pardon me?
Hide them.
Let them do what? Sleep it off. Do we have members, and I would say we still have an occasional alcohol problem, that a member has trouble making it 24 hours without having a drink. They can make it in, they make it for 24 hours. As soon as the shift's over, what do?
Back on track.
They go across the street, get something, drink on their 2 days off. What happens to them when they retire? What's that 1 day out of 3 do for them? Yeah, they don't last very long. If we think about drug problems, most of our drug problems are off-duty type stuff. How does that show up in the workplace?
If they're doing recreational, then they're out partying all night, they come in tired. If they're doing it because of depression, maybe a family issue, then you've got to deal with that.
But how does it, you're the company officer, how does it show up in the station?
Poor performance.
Lack of focus.
Distracted.
What's the first sign? If we have time today, pardon me?
A change of behavior is the first thing.
Change in behavior. If we have time today, we had 4 suicides in about a year in Phoenix. And so we went through a whole thing to look at the mental health side of it, and it made us look really hard at it. Before we had a change in behavior, what we start to see is attendance. As attendance starts to drop. And so we've documented enough now that if we know that in our leave banks, someone that has 0 leave hours, we actually call it the red zone, is that they, depending on your time on the job, if you're getting down to this level down here, unless you've got a medical problem, you've got a family, you've got a kid, you've got something that's going on, the first sign is to start looking at is that they have problems coming to work. And they're calling in sick, they're not able to come. They're the guy that calls in the morning, needs, hey man, I need a couple hours off in the morning, I need 4 hours off. Because he can't do what? He can't function to come. And in our culture has changed because our culture used to be, I'd make it there. I blew about a .10 just to be able to get there to work, but you would take care of me. Now I know if I show up, I smell of alcohol and this is going on, what are you going to do? You're either going to get them tested or you're going to send them home. You're not going to put yourself at a risk of being able to deal with them. So he says, hey, I need 4 hours off. So I don't know how you guys do your sick leave. It's one of those ones. Ours always goes through the central deputy, knows every single morning. There's one person that 1,600 members, 490 of them on duty every day that have to call and say what's going on. The next thing is when people are running out of leave time, is that there's an issue that's starting going on. They can cover it up, but when they come to work, they're always what? They're always tired. Now, what you mentioned is one of the worst things for that, because they can come in, they check out the truck, says, hey, I'm going to go and I'm just going to go do something in my room. They can go hide in their room then and sleep. Next thing we notice is they're always on the phone. There's always an issue where? There's always an issue at home. Or, exactly what he did here, I got to go deal with something. I got to go out and I got to deal with something. We start to see those things happen, and what do we have to do? Pardon me?
Address it.
Address it. How?
Delicately sometimes.
That's quick.
I think there's also a place that we need to be
For
doing.
an employee assistance program, you can refer him to or ask him if
How does that go?
if you suspect the person's having some behavioral problems, whether it's drugs or stress or whatnot, you can talk to him and just let him know the city has a program that's offered to him. And you can really choose or not to choose. Now, if it becomes a safety issue, then you can move it forward. But initially, it's a voluntary type thing.
What were you going to say?
I was just saying, I guess it depends on the person, depends on your relationship with them. I think there's some people you have to be very delicate with. Some people you probably could just be very direct with, just depending on the rapport.
I have gotten away from being delicate with drugs and alcohol. Is that it is absolutely tore our department apart when an issue has come up. Most of the time, and not to, I don't mean it, just myself, that I've had to deal with it, and probably as the personnel chief, that was probably one of the toughest things. Most of the times at the station, does everybody know what's kind of going on with you? If you had a fight with your wife before you came to work, do we know? Yeah. Is you got an issue with a kid that's happening? Yeah. How long do we stay here? How long will all of you stay here in the Greensboro Fire Department? At least what? 30 some years. In 30 years, are you going to have a bad year? Absolutely. And that's okay. That's 29 great years that we're going to have with you. But what will usually happen is that people will look and say something's going on. It's been bubbling up. He'll work his way through it. These things that they've kind of happened before. I've kind of talked to him. The first time you talk to him, what's a member going to say? I always say him, but male or female, we've had problems. What's the first thing he's going to say?
Complete denial.
Complete denial. It's nothing. It's going okay. I'll be good. The next shift, he's pretty good. The shift after that, what will start to happen?
Fall back into
The same thing. We're afraid of, at least in our organization, we were afraid that if we did something, the disciplinary side was going to kick in. If we don't do something, what will kick in? Disciplinary. For us, we had about the 10-strike program years ago. It'd take you about 10 times to get in trouble before we got rid of you. In today's time, and it goes back to what we saw with the NFL and everything else, do we still have a 10-strike program? Pretty much you get one hit at it. The second time something bad happens, we'll sit down and usually you'll do a last chance agreement. By the third one, you're gone for us. We're really big on last chance agreements. And I guess for me, what I've seen has been so destructive to our members. And it's as bad as an on-duty, we'll talk about a fatality that we had. It's as bad as that over there. And in my career, we've lost 4 members on the job, but I bet you we've lost 25 members to drug and alcohol, off-duty type stuff, whether it be DUIs, drugs, alcohols, inappropriate behavior versus what we have done. Now, the fire ground is in my baby, something bad happens, we'll manage that, but we have to manage the other side of it. For me, somebody's having an issue, things are going on, First thing that we do is we got to get our boss involved. Call your boss, say, hey, I'm struggling over here, I need some help on something. And the other side of it is we remand a lot of people to EAP. Is that the side of saying you need to go, and again, I don't want to be, this is my experience, hey, these are available to you. There's maybe a little bit of time in the beginning, they're struggling with some stuff that's going on. If you're truly seeing somebody that is having poor performance, you identify some things that are happening off duty. You think there's an alcohol issue, you think there's some type of a drug issue, you land them to treatment. Our success with the treatment side of it has been huge. There's only one drug that we're really still struggling with. Guess? Pardon me? Meth. Heroin, they can be put on methadone, and they'll be able to get out of them. So the ability to do that is huge. Here's two things. This is within the last 6 months. One of our guys was arrested and charged with pot. He was terminated. The other guy, the captain suspected that something was going on with him. They'd had him in a treatment program. He came back out of the treatment program, went through a re-entry program down at the academy, back to work, started to go downhill. Captain called the supervisor. We got him, took him to the hospital, put him into a treatment program. He got out of the treatment, self-signed out, was walking down the street. One of our ambulances saw him, picked him up, took him back to the treatment facility. He told him what was going on. He left again out of there, went down, got in his car and went driving and got picked up and basically a DUI for drugs at that point, and we had to terminate him. There's not a lot of room for that other side of it. So I guess when I look at these, is that if we don't respond on the front end of it and it leaves our department, the back side of it is termination. And that, for me, I'm not very hardcore on stuff, but on these here, we have to be able to grab them, look at what's going on, put them into a place where they can get treatment and move forward. Maintain a positive work environment. We're each responsible for creating a positive work environment based on trust, approachability, open communication.
I hope that's the last call tonight.
Me too, man. See you guys in the morning.
All right, guys. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. I hope that's it.
It's the same guy again. If you think of our station, we talked a little bit about it. It's like our home. What stuff is inappropriate in a fire station? They were both accepted, and no one was complaining. Both of them were sitting there watching it. What else is unacceptable? I want to go to your station. What can't we do? We can't steal. What else? We can't watch porn anymore.
What about soft?
We can't play. Pardon me?
Soft porn?
Soft porn? Watch out for HBO.
Yeah.
Harass. We can't harass. We talked a little bit about it in the beginning. What is harassment to you?
Violation of a person's trust or what they're expecting to be treated.
Some type of unwanted treatment, inappropriate behavior towards them, harassment, hazing. So part of it is, and we talked about it a little bit, where is that line at? Did they cross, is something like this easy? Can two firefighters date?
No,
Yes. Date, married?
You said, I said yes.
There's a shake back there going on. Deal. Can they work in the same station together?
Two experts right there.
Outer edges on the back row.
I seem to be hitting something here. Should family members work together? Can family members supervise each other? You're not supposed to. Can it be hard sometimes of where the line is?
The line's going to change. Here's a situation, going back with Bill, the younger generation. I have rookies coming in. Pretty much standard through the department is they want to wash the towels, they want to answer the phone. In our situation, they'll put the chief's gear. I mean, there's rookie jobs. Put the flag up, take the flag down. Some of the younger folks come in, they don't see why they should have to do that every time. Why am I the only one? I mean, this has come up. But my answer has always been that if you got the least responsibility of anyone on the company, there again, I think it goes back to communicating and giving them a why. But I've always told them, if you can't put the flag up, you can't answer the phone, you can't put the chief's equipment in the car, and you can't make sure towels are folded, then how in the world down the road am I going to give you the responsibility to drive the fire truck or any other job, because you got the least responsibility? At least give them a why. But some of the younger folks come in, almost see that as a harassment. So I think that harassment line almost has to be set by the company officers. But that's not harassment, but some people claim that it, or feel that it is being harassed, because they're a rookie. You get them all rookie jobs.
Can't call them rookies.
And you can't call them rookies.
Can't call them rookies? What about booters?
Firefighters. That's the politically correct term.
We call ours booters.
There's a lot of other words we call them too.
So so let me ask this, how do you guys manage your stations to keep yourself out of trouble? You know what the next slide is, don't you? Do you want to be in part of an investigation and be a part of that? Do you want to be part of a settlement? Each one of the events that we've had in Phoenix, if the company officer would say what, it would have stopped it. Stop it. Stop it. Now some of the stuff, what is your culture, what is expected of them, I don't have a problem with it. What you listed is exactly what we expect our members. We expect them there at 7. Our shift change runs from 7 to 8. We want them there during that period of time. We want them there to be the first ones there. There's a lot of things that we do exactly like you mentioned. And sometimes you do. You have to sit down and you have to say, this is what is expected of you. This is what I'm going to grade you on as we move through this.
Well, that doesn't me though is I also tell my senior firefighters. I mean, I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where we get decentralized. I feel like I do. They might tell you different over here, but I feel like in my conversations around the dinner table or in the kitchen while we're cooking and stuff, I'll tell them, nobody's going to mess with, I'll tell my rookie, I'll tell my senior fire, nobody messes with you. That's a safety thing. I mean, I try to set my expectations as to what is acceptable and not acceptable.
And when things are out of bounds, what do you do?
That ain't going to happen. You can't address that situation on the case-by-case basis.
When they cross that line, what you have to do is you have to react. And 99% of the time, if you just say, hey, knock it off, then it was absolutely fine. The reason why I bring up about the married and dating, the one that we ended up paying a settlement on, was the engineer and the firefighter. She transfers into the station. He's the engineer that's driving it. And we staff with 4. They start dating off duty, start to go hike the mountain together, start going to see movies. Before long, they're dating in the station. Everything was fine until she did what? Broke up. And then he had a meltdown. Because he was what? He was in love. The company officer witnessed all of it and did what? Nothing. So, individual dorms, they're out cleaning the apparatus. He goes in and steals her cell phone, goes in his room to do what? Go through it and start looking at messages. They have a call, He throws it on the bed, closes his door locks, and then he goes out, goes on the call, and comes back. Now, he can't get back. He doesn't have a key for his room. So he has to break into the ceiling tile, crawl across the ceiling tile, drop down the other side of it, and drops the ceiling out of the station. Takes the phone, and then finds the stuff on it. Then she gives it to her, and you can see where this all goes. The captain did what?
Bought some ceiling tile.
Pardon me? There's damage over here. I'm not real sure what's going on. What did he do? Nothing. She came to him and said, "Hey, this is borderline harassment now. Borderline. Stole your phone and everything else." What did he do? What did the rules say that he had to do? We have no choice whatsoever but exactly what you said. Is you have to report it to who? Your boss. Most things that happen in the fire station, can you manage them? Once we talk about drug and alcohol, what do you have to do? Get your boss involved. Once we start talking about inappropriate behavior, sexual behavior, harassment in a fire station, what do you need to do? Talk to your boss. Is it a pain? Yeah. We pride ourselves on that. Hey, I manage my station. I don't need anybody to come in and manage my station. I don't need the chief to come do it. You expect me to do it? Yeah, we all pride ourselves on this. But the life and times have changed. So by not following those basic steps, finally he went out there and had a little sit down with everybody and said, "Hey, I don't know what you two have going on, but if you're going to be dating and stuff like this," he told the girl, "You have to leave the station," which is a violation of the contract. So he started off, he tried to do some stuff to help himself, but he did everything that was actually the opposite. And did no documentation, didn't follow any rules. So in the end of it, when it comes back, does he end up in trouble? Yeah. So again, the first portion about what do I do when bad things happen? What does the department expect of me? What does the city expect of me? What does my boss expect of me? These are good conversations to have. If you don't know you all went through the testing process. Most of the time, you know what's going on. You know what is expected of you. It's sometimes hard. We don't have a lot of people that we promote to company officers that will want to pick up the phone and call their boss and say, "Hey, I'm dealing with this over here. I really don't need you to do anything, but I need to be able to tell you, hey, this is what's going on." The great thing is a lot of times, first off, is that you move it up to the next level. But probably somewhere along the way, what has that battalion chief had to do before? He's had to deal with it. And he's great to be able to say, here's 3 things that you need to be thinking about. You need to document it, this is what needs to happen, and we need to be able to stop this from going forward. And he's got that portion to be able to help you through it. And keep you out of that portion where you're actually doing a settlement. Now, great news, big old settlement thing up there and everything else. The settlement was $45,000. How much do you think the lawyer got? He got $35,000 of it. She had some outstanding bills, and so what did they do? Garnished it. So so in the end of it, people think, hey, we spent out thousands of dollars, but what happened really was a small settlement, because some of the things that after that went very well. Is once it did get into the system, and once it did get documented, once the whole story we were able to go through, and then we did some discipline. We had to discipline. She had done some stuff, so we needed to discipline her. We had to discipline the engineer, and we had to discipline the captain on that portion. So.
Did they ever split or get moved?
He left.
He left. Okay. So I was wondering how you handled that.
Yep. So our system is it's on a bid system, where the chief can move you, the fire chief can move you. So everything in there is done by straight seniority in class. So when this was all blowing up, he chose to leave then. He said, but we would have had to move one of them. Let's take 10 minutes and then come on back. I know it does. At least we all can tell time the same way then. Being a good supervisor.
Start back, guys. Okay.
You guys have riders?
We got lunch. Oh, we got a rider here, she's supposed to be here at 9 o'clock, so maybe we'll wait till she gets here and we'll go out and do
Yeah, that's what I want.
She's a firefighter for us. So you can tell the problems at the stations that happen. Oh yeah, everybody that's in here is a firefighter for us. Even the girl that's pregnant in the car is a firefighter too for us.
Didn't have that fire station.
No, that's the line. That's what we call the line.
The good thing is she's not married to a firefighter. How's that? What are some things that you should see coming? Did you see that coming?
Sorry.
What are some things that gets us in trouble at that fire station? Dangerous situations, safety violations, mental health issues, disgruntled employees, personnel problems, attitudes, the headline test. We talked a little bit about it, but does Facebook get us in trouble? So here we are. Here's engine 27. Is engine 27 in here? So what do you think they did? They went and got the truck washed. After they washed the truck, they wanted to do what? Take a picture. Now the guy that was the young company officer said he knew what? He had that feeling in his gut that this just isn't good. But he decided anyway to do what? Oh yeah, let it ride. It's kind of like that girl. As soon as I popped that girl up there, everybody had that same feeling of, is that trouble? Yeah, I could see that walking in the station. This one here, he thought to himself, yeah, this isn't going to be good. It got posted in a, I would say, an alternative lifestyle magazine along with online there. And it took about a nanosecond for someone else, we don't know how they found it, to find it. The problem is, who did they send it to? Not to the media, to the city council, but to the mayor. And if you think about complaints today, and in the past, if you had to file a complaint with the fire department, what did you have to do? Go back about 15 years. Go to the chain of command, you can pick up, you have to search for the numbers of the fire department, call the fire department. Today, how can you put a complaint? Anonymous. We have the integrity line that actually was for employees to do on other employees, but now it's open, you don't have to leave anything. So anybody can make an accusation out there. I can email the mayor, every one of the council members, the fire chief. There's just multiple ways that if somebody observes something, it may not be even somebody getting treated. Just that, hey, I drove by and I saw these firemen taking care of them and they looked inappropriate. And it comes back into the system on that. How do we manage Facebook and stuff?
I think, unfortunately, we have to attempt to do it through policies, and sadly, I wish that we could do it through just, common sense or an attitude about it, but I guess we're so big that that's hard to get everybody on the same page.
What do you see that's posted that's out there that's inappropriate?
Rear shot.
On that one there.
Well, I think you're going to have a different answer from everybody. I mean, that's an issue that I see is inappropriateness could be different to each person that's in here. Something that I think is not inappropriate or not a bad symbol of the fire department somebody else very well could take it as that and file a complaint.
So on your personal thing, what do you have to make sure you're not represented? You'll read in, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He has a thing that was on there before. Most of the members or fire department members that have been terminated have gotten their jobs back over Facebook type stuff because of the First Amendment right of being able to do that. The people that haven't gotten their jobs back mostly is because when they did a post, who were they representing or who did they say they were representing? Our fire department. So the things that you do off duty, the things that you put on there, there's one that's going on right now where there was a, it was just up the road here in Charlotte, which will be a very interesting one to watch as far as what you have as far as your personal views on stuff versus something where you put a post where you're standing in front of a fire engine or you have anything that says the Greensboro Fire Department or a t-shirt or even a station shirt or even if the 27 and people know that 27 is something that the fire department members, you're representing the fire department at that point in time. So for some people, they're out there posting and they feel that, hey, I've got the right to be able to post their stuff. And yeah, you do. You can post a lot of stuff out there. But what can't you do? You can't represent that you're representing the fire department. Does that make sense? Chief, you had a comment?
I was going to say exactly what you said.
We have a lot of civilians that wear our shirts. So they do things.
We have, I mean, everybody wants to wear a Phoenix Fire Department ball cap or different things that are out there. And on the other side, we sell shirts. We don't sell large. About the only thing that we've had really good control on is the Phoenix Fire Department shirt with Phoenix Fire Department on the back of it. But the union has shirts that look exactly like ours, but say Phoenix Firefighters instead of Fire Department on it. So you're exactly right. And we have to respond to every one of those and say, we've gone through, we've looked at the picture, and we've identified that this is not a member of the department. Any other things on Facebook?
What did y'all do in this situation?
Told not to do it again.
Not do it again.
Don't do it again.
Hazing's become, the term hazing or whatever's really come to limelight. And personal experience, somebody may think something's hazing and outside of the fire department culture, whereas we do not recognize that. Somebody passing a promotion test and getting wet, that's not hazing. Or I don't feel like it is. And if the person doesn't feel like it, then it's not.
Wow, your standards are up there somewhere.
No, wet. But if that person doesn't feel offended by it, you get into a situation where we don't feel that it's wrong to post that, and somebody outside the fire department culture feels it is offensive to them, and they contact the city manager's office or whatever, and it rolls downhill from there. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to not see a definitive line, I guess is what I'm saying.
Like this, what if it would have been a prostate cancer car wash, and there would have been guys in shorts, and one would have been laying like that?
So it would have been no
If
problem
you
whatsoever.
want to say there's no difference between the gender issue, then let's say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the other side of it, but I can see.
Oh, yeah.
So what is being wet?
I mean, somebody gets you with a water can, 5-gallon bucket of water being dumped on you. If the guy that's getting wet isn't
Can you
offended,
defend that in front of 12 peers, in front of a jury? Let's say that somebody put it, and that's kind of a bad example. Whatever we do, we have to be able to defend it as it's acceptable within our culture, and that the group that you're out there looking at it and then are judging you, because they're going to judge you on what they feel is appropriate or not is appropriate. So that you're exactly right, because putting that water onto it, I think in the fire service and the culture, that's a pretty common thing. We used to do with open cabs, we used to turn the stain gun around, and somebody would jump up in the back, you'd have the engine in gear, and you just tap that gas real quick, and you just douse them, because they weren't paying attention. And it was a part of that. Now if someone says, hey, stop it, what do I have to do? I need to be able to stop it. It is just part of you have to be able to defend your actions when you're out there. If you're looking at something and you're saying, I'm going to have a hard time defending that, don't do it. As far as putting it in, you did something, it's a culture here, it's an acceptable culture, a portion of it, is that you get promoted, that they do that to you, or they have some different kind of little things for you. But some of the stuff, don't screw with. Someone said, don't screw with someone's gear. We are really bad at screwing with each other's food. And that went really bad for Los Angeles, for screwing with people's food. And we've had incidents in Phoenix where people have done stuff for Lotto tacos and for Lotto burritos and doing some things that have gone bad, that we've had to change our culture and say, don't screw with people's gear, don't screw with their personal stuff, don't screw with food. And that was hard because in most stations, large stations, Station 30 has 18 members there. And you know if they're cooking tacos or there's something that's coming out, you better be checking your food. And that was just part of it. You went and you sat down, and when we used to have fish fry, you'd take and look for the sponge and see if you got the sponge and stuff. But it got to a point that someone said, stop it, and we realized it was out of bounds, and we had to start saying that.
I don't think the 12 peer thing is such a bad example, because now with the Sue Happy society that we live in, every call or shady thing you do is a potential lawsuit. So you have to look at...
So I wasn't going to bring it up, but we have a culture in our department which is called cock and ball, which is, there's a piece of paper, and I'll go inside here and I'm going to draw a little picture on the inside of this here, if everybody can remember what it's going to look like. And it has been, I mean, I can remember the first time I was at somewhere and I opened something up, it was like, who the hell put that in my stuff? And on lockers, on a pickle jar, that there's a pickle, there's all of a sudden a little drawing that would come up onto that portion of it. There's actually a pickled something T-shirt, that pickled eggs T-shirt. If you can imagine a pickled eggs, 2 eggs and a pickle type deal. I'm getting there with you, and for the most part, it was pretty funny until one person felt that he was being picked on, and then told him to stop, and they didn't. What'd they do then? It got worse, and kept on drawing it, and so he had a lawsuit. We went to the 12 people, and what did the 12 people say? They're a bunch of idiots. Think about how we looked in the paper when that came out, because they said, and we thought we could defend it. That's the best thing. I mean, we're going back a few years. We're all, this is Chief Rudicidio. This is part of our culture. We can defend this. This is what we do, and this is appropriate. We lost big time. Now, looking back upon it and the changes, even 12 years ago, that behavior is just inappropriate. So that's where I started with the 12. At the end of it, if it goes bad, that's who's going to be judging on whether this moves forward. The settlement side of it, we did a settlement, went with all of our lawyers, sat down, they went through each person and identified who we thought was going to be a good witness, who was going to be a bad witness, and they came back and said, you guys just need to settle. One is you're going to pay more money for lawyers' fees than you are going to be over here. That became a business decision, but at the same time, you just look stupid. These two are dating, and they can't get along, and he's crawling through the ceiling and stealing phones, and shoot, are you guys still in high school or what? Plus, as being the assistant chief in charge of personnel, sitting in front of the council and the mayor trying to explain it, and so again, it probably is pretty good to be able to say that thing. Here's some stuff here to kind of move forward through a few things here. You have most of these in here.
Jamie Soretta is live to tell us how the high temps mean a change in the way Phoenix fire crews have to do business. Jamie?
Hey, Carolyn, the fire sparked here around 5 o'clock tonight, and even though it's evening, it was still hot out here. In fact, right now it's 99 degrees, and when the temps hit triple digits, That's when firefighters go into overdrive. When it's really hot when you're fighting a fire.
It does seem like we have more fires in the summer.
Watch in the background and see what you guys see in the background.
Phoenix firefighters know how to play the game of beat the heat. Dressed in 100 pounds of gear, they tackled this fire at 12th Street in Echo as temperatures rose to a 2014 high of 107 degrees.
The number one thing we do is we'll start to add more resources to some of those calls. So when you're driving around or you see a house fire, we might have an extra 1 or 2 engine companies there just for what we like to call manpower.
That helps the guys rotate in and out safely so they can stay healthy for their full shift. Phoenix Fire also calls it extra support.
Basically, shade area, we bring icy cold water to them. Sometimes we have hoods, we have
Icy
some
cold
fans
water.
that blow mist and air on them.
You know, you got harassment on that one.
Garage, and luckily everyone got out okay. But whenever firefighters show up to a call during Valley's high temps, they're ready for a long fight in the heat.
So we are used to it because we do it so often.
Phoenix Fire worked an apartment fire today where they brought in a couple of city buses for people displaced. That way residents could stay cool while firefighters address their needs. Back to you.
Did you guys see anything strange in the video?
No good.
What were they? No turnout codes, but what were they wearing?
They're paying.
SCBA's. Why are we doing that? So if you looked at what was going on, red hats are who? Captains. If we look at our retirees, what's killing our retirees? Cancer. So this one's about being a responsible leader. For most of us on here, except for the chief here, where was the SCBA when you started? In the back of the truck. In the case. Did you wear them?
Called names of it. It was an optional item.
It was an optional item. In our department, we do a really good job of wearing our SCBA's when? Firefighting. If you look at the initial attack portion of it, I would guess here it's acceptable that you wear your SCBA on the initial attack. We're very proficient. We had gone from Scott to, and I just heard from the chief before, you guys have done the same thing. We went from Scott to Draeger. When didn't we wear our SCBA's? Overhaul. When do you think one of our biggest exposures nowadays is? So 2 years ago, we went through the safety stand down, which is always in, what is that, about June, July, and the all firefighters come up with a list of stuff. We had looked at that. But we felt as a department we had to change our culture as far as wearing our SCBA's and when to wear our SCBA's and when not to. And we looked at this portion and we looked at the statistics of our retirees. We got beat up pretty bad because we made a silly video and it started off with a bunch of retirees all sitting around drinking beer, smoking cigars. And it was about, this one here is the dumpster taster. And then the next one was a food on the stove cigar and different things. And then they started talking about that they all had cancer and that they had different in the ear pasted to their head, or they had a mole over here, they had a big old mole on the side of the head. It doesn't probably sound very funny in here. If you saw the video, it was really good. But at the end of it, we brought on some members that are all suffering from cancer and what effect it had on their life post-retirement, and where do you think your exposure was, and what things can we do? And we went to the company officers, and we said, if we're going to have a cultural change in our department, you all have to be able to lead that change. But as a battalion chief, I can tell you to do it, but for a lot of us, our battalion chiefs are there. Once the fire's done, we'll do a critique. We'll leave a few companies there to kind of finish off. The investigator will come. We've gotten a lot better of stopping, overhaul, letting them investigate it, and then go back and finish overhaul. And we said to them, we need you all as leaders in the department to make a change. And so I actually had a friend from Illinois that when this was on one night, he was out visiting, he goes, man, look at that. And what had happened was exactly what we see here, is that what we want to do is limit that exposure and change the department. And so as leaders in the department, we looked at this past year again and went back through and reviewed through this and said, Are we doing what we said? And what we did is we brought everybody in and said, we want to make a difference in the department. Now, we know that the exposure, where's some other exposure at? Because I got beat up on showing this little on the skin, the neck. One of the things that we're really good at, I think you guys have a cleaning program for your turnouts. You clean your turnouts. You didn't think we were going to talk about cancer. Do you clean your hoods? How often? Same time? What we're looking at, or what they're telling us, is that one of the biggest exposures that we have is every time we put that hood on. And that hood is dirty. So we're looking, right now, one of the trucks that you saw is a utility. So it comes out, fills up the bottles, and then you don't have to carry a bunch of bottles. It does it right there with the thing on it. Is every fire you go to, they just give you a new hood. They go back and they'll wash the hoods. Because right now we all have our hoods, we got our name on our hood, and we keep it in the same spot. But to reduce that exposure, is we're looking at just buying a bunch of them, sticking them in there in a dirty bag in the utility truck. When you come out, he gives you a new one, you go back in. We've done a really good job of cleaning our gear and stuff, but we haven't done a good job of taking care of our hoods. 90% of the negative stuff can't or won't happen if we act like a boss. You guys have said it today, we lead by example. A lot of what we do every day is just coaching, great communication, including listening, address issues immediately, be corrective, be nice. Someone asked about that Facebook post, what did we do with him? That captain had absolutely beaten the hell out of himself, so there wasn't much that we could do to him that he hadn't already done to himself already. A lot of what we do every single day is above the bar. We do a little bit of management off the bar, and all we need to do is kind of push them back up. Two basic problems: safety violations, harassment, those issues. Stop them right away. Once we stop them, what's our advantage? We got some discretionary time. Do you guys have a mentor? You don't have to raise. I kind of threw that out there. In our department, one of the things that we push really hard is somebody that you feel confident in, that you can call up and that you can talk to. It can be someone that's a close friend to you. It could be your boss, your relationship with your boss, someone in the personnel department, the union, some other member that's on the job. But for a lot of these things, the ability to talk to somebody, once you stopped it, and then be able to talk, say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How's your relationship with your boss? And again, you don't need to think about it. How often does your boss come by and see you? Or if you are the boss, some of you guys that are chief officers in there, how often are you seeing your companies? And truly sitting down with them, not just the portion of, hey, I'm coming by. Some places I don't know if you have to make your stations every day or how you deliver it. Some places deliver mail. But training, interaction, what is that relationship? If something bad is happening, do I feel that company officer is going to give me a call and tell me what's going on in the station? As a BC, I learned very early that the places I felt most comfortable going to, my stations that were out there, and I'd go and have dinner with them or have lunch with them, or we were training and running calls, were really not the places that I needed to spend my time. The places I needed to spend my time were the stations that were challenges for me. One of them was a guy that's a captain. His name's Dave Sanchez. He's a captain at Engine 17. He was a captain at Engine 17 before I even came on the job, and he is still there. And the first day I went there, he says, I was here long before you come, and I'll be here long after you leave. I said, you're absolutely right, but I'm here today. So each chief has a driver. I don't know, do you guys have a driver? I'm looking at the chiefs. No. My driver absolutely hated him. And so every time we were going to go over there for lunch, he would be, and he planned, to be honest, he would plan like meals, things like that was like his thing as far as being my driver. So I'd say, okay, we got to go to 17's, for lunch or for dinner, you pick. And he'd absolutely get mad. F him, I don't want to go over there, that's no fun. He'd go and look in the thing, if he was off, oh, Dave's off, we can go over there. No, we need to be able to go over there. The great thing that happened is that he had a person that came in and that was having a meltdown in the station. And he felt comfortable to be able to call me and say, man, I need some help. I'm not real I'm not real sure what to do. And to me, that was a success. Him and I aren't fishing buddies, we'll never be fishing buddies, but at least he felt comfortable that when something bad, to be able to call me. If anything, build on your relationships, work with other people, work through each portion of it. Before we do the second half here, I'm going to show you a video. We had a young firefighter, his name's Brad Harper, was killed in the summer of 2013 at an event. And it kind of ties all the stuff that we've been talking about together on being a good boss, being a good supervisor, and why it's so important what we do every single day. And what we do because if you look at the event there, some decisions were made, and we made this video to be able to share it with everybody.
On May 18th, 2013, firefighter Brad Harper died as a result of a backing accident while operating at a fire call in South Phoenix. Phoenix Fire, Phoenix PD, and OSHA all conducted investigations into his line of duty death. In the following animation, we've paired the apparatus movements with the radio traffic to reconstruct what happened that day. After the animation, you'll see the findings of the investigative team.
Command Engine 14, you'll be working on the south sector, which is Engine 39. Command the unit stage on 39th Avenue in Miami. Engine 21. That's right, you should find the plug on you start coming down Miami. I'm gonna have Engine 24 meet you. And they're gonna continue the plug. 39, plug 39, ready for water. Engine 6 to Engine 21. Be advised, we just came down Miami. There's no plugs along this route. Rescue 21, Engine 21. Command, go.
Command, this is your 12-minute elapsed time notification.
Okay, copies, we're still offensive. We have a small fire in the debris fire line. There's not a commercial structure.
Command, you're in offensive, a small multi-fire debris fire behind the structure.
Be advised, I think your closest plug is off of Buckeye Road. We have a truck laying in from that already that we can hook up to. Stand by at Engine 21 looking for one. Command Engine 21. Engine 21. Yeah, Troy, you copy that. There's the closest plug is off of Buckeye. Let's at 24 to assist you guys. Copy that. You know, if we're getting 6s there, we're probably going to need them too. Command copies. Command Engine 6. Engine 6. I need you to back out, and I want you to assist you guys get this supply line over here. Copy, what's this with supply line? Rescue 21, stage west. Commander Rescue 21. Rescue 21. I want you to hook up with your engine.
Remember, a rescue's an ambulance.
Rescue 21 copies, we'll hook up with our engine. Command Engine 21, you copy, you're gonna have your rescue. Engine 21 to command. Command, go. Advise, we do have found a plug on 39th Avenue in Lower Buckeye, but we're gonna have to lay across the street. We'll need PD for traffic control. Those command copies, go ahead and lay that line. Command alarm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dispatch PD for traffic control on 39th Avenue and Lower Buckeye.
Happy command, we have PD responding. We'll have them expedite for traffic control on 39th Avenue and Lower Buckeye.
Engine 24 to command. Command, go. Command Engine 24.
time notification. Do you need any tankers dispatched? All units, hold your traffic with the lady on the fire ground. Firefighter with the lady, go ahead.
Firefighter Copper, Rescue 21. I've got my firefighting partner in between Engine 24 and Rescue 21 at this time on 39th Avenue. Commander, South Deputy. South Deputy, we are en route. We don't want to make you treatment. Commander, no argument about.
Copy, Commander. First alarm.
We're 30 feet from. Do you want us to stay here for the fire or help Engine 24? Command is Engine 6. I want you to assist Engine 24. Engine 6 will be assist Engine 24. Command Engine 6. You'll be working in a 2-minute sector with the South Deputy. 21 command. 21 go. Do not charge that line yet. Copy, stand 21, stand by. 24, command. Command, go. Hey, Jonah, we need a line pull through this gate. We made access to. We got a working fire in this metal glass building. We got 2 roll-up doors. Open it. Open the main door up. Go on, give me emergency traffic again. I need the air.
All units, hold your traffic. Command, go ahead.
Rescue 21 to command. Command, go. Or at Rescue 21, we need a ladder and we need another ambulance on this now. Command, ladder 24. Ladder 24. I need you to back up and I need you to go assist Engine 21 with the off-classification. Ladder 24 copies. Assistant. Command ladder 24. Be advised you'll be working under South Deputy treatment. South, you're working under South Deputy treatment.
Phoenix Fire Department findings. After an extensive review, this committee finds the following. Contrary to Phoenix Fire Department procedures, Engine 24 was not utilizing a backer as they backed north on 39th Avenue. Firefighter Harper was likely concentrating on donning his turnouts and did not act to direct Engine 24 or move out of the way. Engine 24's speed in reverse was not excessive. Phoenix Police finding. This collision is a result of the operator of Engine 24 not perceiving or reacting appropriately to Rescue 21 as Engine 24 backed northbound. Contributing to the collision is a lack of perception and timely reaction to the closely approaching Engine 24 by the dismounted pedestrian firefighter, and the lack of a designated backing assistant on the ground.
When you listen to the tape, how do you feel the anxiety was on that fire ground? That was the tape.
Controlled.
Very controlled. Not a rush of anything going on. The incident commander is actually his driver is running the fire. What we do is we'll switch. It's a mentor thing, so you get to be the driver becomes the rider, and so he's running the fire. I've listened to this enough times. It's an exterior fire that's burning. It was burning towards. What did Ladder 24 come back and tell them though? Right during the mayday. Yeah, it had extended now to that metal clad. It's a huge old building that's back there. So now things were starting to go. It's in an annexed area, so water supply is always a tough portion for us that's down there. Engine. It's real common for us is when you send an engine on an incident, the ambulance goes with them. We assign them together, so it's a 4-person company. Now it becomes a 6-person company, and it's a manpower. They have SCBAs on them and everything. For most of the people that were experienced there, you guys heard it, is that the conversations, we need to get a water supply. It's going to take us a while. It was very slow. Brad's 23 years old, had just came off of probation. To work, what we do is the guy that ran the Mayday off of Rescue 21 is actually on the captain's list. So what an opportunity is that a captain can ride on an ambulance for overtime, 24 hours of overtime. So he's on the captain's list. He was very calm. We'd gone through a bunch of Mayday training. What's that going to sound like? Everything. He followed his training directly as we asked him to do. But having him there versus another one-year firefighter made a huge difference in that. We talked about family type stuff. We had probably 5 sets of family. The South deputy that went over there, his son was the captain on ladder 24. There's 2 brothers, the captain on engine 21 and the captain on engine 6 were brothers that were there. Brad's support group, and a group of them, there were 6 of them from high school that went through high school and that all got hired in the same class and all came on together. It was a class of about 50-some people in there. So there was just a huge amount of people that knew who was on Rescue 21 and what was going on there. Everything that was going on, one other factor that was in this was that one of the firefighters on engine 24 had 3 hours off on vacation. And we allow that up to 3 hours you can take off. So they're running what we call running short with 3 of them. Engine 24 was just going to back up probably about, I don't know, the T in the road and just back up and let engine 21 lay up to them. As they turn the corner and he's going to back up, the firefighter says what? Let me back you up. What's the engineer say? I got it. I've got it. Brad gets out, they pull the ambulance. We looked at the parking of it. He parked it pretty much right on the side of the street. He didn't get off to the side of the street. As it was backing up, and we went back and checked, they estimated the speed in the backing was about 4.5 or 5 miles an hour. So he's just backing up real slow. Do we get sometimes our situational awareness? Do we work around apparatus that is backing all the time? Yeah, if we look at the academy, and I point to the chief, is that we function around apparatus moving, things happening on the fire ground. One of the ones that we don't know is how did he not see that coming back? But talking to some really smart people, talking to people in the military, is that we become somewhat just accustomed to that hazard. And is it a hazard even to us anymore? Not at all. Came back, caught him right between there. The thought was that he probably saw it coming and thought, hey, I can just lean into here. He had the ability, the cabinet was big enough that he could have jumped into that portion of it and got out of the way, but he came back and it basically pinched him right between the 2 of them right there. But something really simple, do you think they had ever backed up without a spotter before? Yeah. And so I guess for that leadership portion of it, or that supervisory, that portion of it, and that's why, I mean, it's a tough video every time that I have to sit here and watch it. But if there's a lesson for us to be able to learn out of there, there's a whole list of rules that we have that we follow every single day. And sometimes we choose not to follow those rules. And most of the time we think the risk is what? Is really low. Yeah, that risk for that's not going to happen. I think it's hard sometimes being the supervisor. It's 2:30 in the morning. You pulled into an apartment complex. The engineer's just going to back it up. We're going to turn and go back out. The ambulance is there. They beat us to it. The reality is what do we have to do every time we're going to back up? We've got to have a backer. So take that and apply it to everything else that we do each and every day. And I said a little bit ago about rules and dealing with drugs and alcohol, how my tolerance has become very low on it. After going through this, OSHA came in. OSHA gave us a fine of $78,000, which is the max fine, and said we did it willingly, which means that basically this happens in your organization. They went through and interviewed people, and they asked them, hey, do you guys back up without spotters? Do you do other things? The nice thing is OSHA said, hey, if you spend all that money in training, we won't take that money. You spend it. And we went out and built a driver training and talked about backing and stuff, but it's been a lot of time just talking about what things do we do during the day, and why is it tough, or why would it be tough, or why would someone not get off an apparatus, or what things, why was it okay for that engineer to think, hey, I can just back up along here and violate that? And it has a very positive, our accidents have gone down to almost nil, and you can imagine because of an event like this, it had a huge impact back onto the department. How do you think the captain and the engineer are doing, though? Yeah. Exactly. It took their whole life and turned their whole life upside down. Both of them have been back to work and both of them have been off work type stuff. Each of them received a suspension, and in our policy portion of it, we had to do some type of disciplinary action to them, but to them, no matter what, we could have demoted them or terminated them, and what they're going through is 10 times worse than anything else. So we put a lot of words up there about being accountable and holding people accountable, doing things that are right, being a leader during that time. I think it all comes together when you sit and you look at something like this. And sometimes it is tough being a supervisor, but that's the job we signed up for. 99% of the time, it's absolutely great. But being that person that's in charge, knowing what's right, knowing what's right, following the rules, and then every so often, what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to pull them back in. You're going to have to get them back online, and you have to get them going straight again. Any questions about that incident or anything on that?
I was just impressed with how well your communication, your alarm, not dispatcher. They were obviously launched an attack channel, the operations channel performed very nicely.
I went and had dinner with your chief last night, and one of the things we talked about was dispatch and dispatch centers. I've unfortunately had to manage our dispatch center and tech services, and it is the biggest pain in the ass. It's all civilians, different shifts and everything else, but it is probably one of the highlights of our department is the way that they respond. And we just rotate it around. It's basically your turn, but when you listen to them, what they can do, the way that they don't, and I think yours is probably what, police, fire, mixed together. All of ours are just dedicated to fire. So they don't have any other type deal. So when we did RIC training and Mayday training, every single day, every dispatcher had to go through and do the radio side of it for 1,600 Maydays. Every single member had to go on the radio and do a Mayday and work their way through it. Every one of them had to be done through there. So, thank you. Any other questions about the incident or the fire? Probably one of the hardest things. He had just been married about 8 months. One of the things that I hadn't thought about was she being a very young individual has done okay, but mom and dad. And mom and dad, he was the oldest of the family and still has kids in high school, has 2 cousins that are on the job, and it has been very difficult. They're very angry with the fire department. Very angry with that, wanted their cousins to quit the job. A lot of problems kind of with that side of it. And the wife really kind of has moved on type thing.
Did he die on scene or
they revived him on scene and they took him in. They revived him in the hospital. He died probably about 18 hours later.
How did you get him removed?
Airbags. Put 2 airbags on him, pushed him apart, popped an airbag, had to drop another airbag in there. Then they pulled them both apart. He fell straight down. We were able to pull him straight out underneath the apparatus then.
Like you said, your accidents have gone down, but the engineer is caught or as an accident and there's no backer being used. I know disciplinary action, but what law?
So we pulled everybody in.
This is, up to me, this is not using the backer is probably one of the most serious things you can do while you're driving. And we've had several issues recently.
So our discipline is corrective, progressive, and lawful, and you have to follow a set of stuff with the city. So it always starts off with a verbal, then it goes to a written, it goes to a suspension and to demotion. And you can skip certain levels depending on the severity of it. So what we did as a department, the week after, when we put everything together, we brought every member of the department came to the training academy. We brought them in waves of 45 minutes. We brought them in, we sat down and said, this is what happened on the event. These are the circumstances around it. Everybody has a verbal reprimand at this time. So the next step as you leave and you go out starts with written or suspension. So each one of them will depend on the event and what happened during that event then type stuff. So the very first one that we had was a BC, watched an engine back up about 5 feet and turn and go down a street, and everybody got a written reprimand on that company. And we've not had another one since.
Because when you drive a vehicle, accidents go out. But to choose, you're making a choice to be negligent and you're not using the backer. So I agree with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, pretty much the disciplinary side versus losing a member, we don't have that. Our accidents have been clipping mirrors, some of the clearance stuff now type things. Any other questions? This has been like quite uplifting. I didn't think it was going to go quite this well. Another great subject here.
For 7 months, a handful of Phoenix firefighters have lost their own lives. Not in the line of duty, but in a way many consider just as tragic. ABC 15 investigator Lori Jane Glighub reveals how they're dying and what we can all do to help.
They are heroes. Every day fighting flames, saving lives. They are fearless and courageous, rescuing complete strangers when no one else will.
It can harbor a lot of stress on the person.
But what happens when it's one of their own who needs rescuing?
It's the worst thing that could ever happen.
Too many families get hurt by all this. What happens when it's one of their own whose life is at stake?
It's not there. Should the fire department have stepped in sooner?
December 2009.
I got to say goodbye, you know. And that's one thing, as much as it hurt seeing him like that, it was an opportunity that I do cherish.
35-year-old Phoenix firefighter Sean Johnson, a man whose job included saving lives, suddenly ended his own.
I don't know how he got to where he was.
For whatever turmoil that was tearing Sean apart on the inside, on the outside he was a kind-hearted prankster, a musician, military veteran, and an outdoorsman. Gone in an instant. Phoenix fireman Adam Cayazzo went through the fire academy alongside Sean. They became close buddies. Adam spoke at Sean's funeral.
Hopefully this never happened to any of us.
But it did happen again. Just 3 months later, 2 more Phoenix firefighters killed themselves in March and then April. One of them, a retired fireman who told his son he was having trouble sleeping at home and planned to stop by the Phoenix fire station to get some rest. That was the day he killed himself.
It's a wake-up call for all agencies. I never realized truly the hurt that's involved. So it happens to you.
And then in July, Phoenix Fire Department suffered another loss.
I miss him very much.
33-year-old Corey Nelson, a father of young children, killed himself too.
I know, because of how he was, that he wouldn't have left his family like this. Because he cared about all of us.
4 firemen gone, ending their own lives.
This is the fire station where Corey and Sean spent some time as Phoenix firefighters. First responders like them are at an even higher risk of suicide simply because of the unique stresses of the job. But there are other contributing factors: depression, substance abuse, finances, even relationship issues. Firefighters also told us there's a macho culture that can exist on the job, and that can make it difficult for these everyday heroes to reach out for help.
What can be done to affect that culture, though, so somebody can feel comfortable to come forward?
Probably the fire chief saying it's okay to ask for help. If I say that and I believe that, and it's good to be strong and it's good to be courageous, but it's also good to ask for help.
Do you believe that when you say it?
I do believe it. Well, I thought the world was this Bishop. I worked with Corey's dad. I don't want to see one more young person die needlessly.
Phoenix Fire Chief Bob Kahn says he held meetings about the suicides with his captains, trying to educate his crews about suicide warning signs. The department already has an employee assistance program and a system called Friends Helping Friends, mostly aimed at helping people struggling with substance abuse. But it wasn't until Corey Nelson killed himself, the fourth suicide, that he formed a special task force focusing on what he calls a problem within the department.
Should the fire department have stepped in sooner?
If I could do something that would put all these people back on fire trucks, I would do that. To second guess it, I would say that's probably not a healthy thing for me to do.
The chief is looking forward now for ways to help his crews. Crisis experts say a person must be willing to reach out for help in order to get it. Problem, they say, in some cases, firefighters need something that trained professionals can't give them.
They're going to go to a peer because they're the ones that they trust to say, you understand what I go through here on the job.
It's a physically and mentally demanding job that right now requires a physical exam to be cleared for work in the field.
Is there anything like that for mental health?
I think there should be.
Will you make that change?
And we'll look at how we do that.
For the survivors, including retired Phoenix firefighter Steve Nelson, who lost his son Corey.
He's probably looking down laughing at us all now. Telling me to get over it.
Getting over it may never be possible, but making a change in someone else's life is.
You're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that will help you out and seek it and embrace it and be positive about things.
The new task force will be making recommendations for changes at the department in mid-November, and we will be following up on that. We're also sending our story to the International Association of Firefighters to get their response about this issue, and we'll let you know what they say. I'm investigator Lori Jane Leha, ABC 15 News.
That was a pretty bad year for us as we went through and looked at our members and what's going on with them and kind of some of the struggles that were happening. If you look over the last probably about the last 6 years, what's happened in the economy?
Middle class is getting squeezed.
Middle class is getting
not going
squeezed.
up. Financial strain.
A lot of people have financial problems. A lot of people in homes that they couldn't afford. Does the job cause us a lot of stress? For a lot of people, what we found in our members, they said the job was what? What they like about the job. Away from home. But you're right, it is. It's a way that you could go. It's very structured. I know what I need. I need $12 to make it through the day to buy lunch and dinner. I know what's going to happen as far as the calls. We sat down with labor management and went through and looked at some recommendations from them. We looked at what's going on as far as the issue, life and job stressors. Some of the things that we found really early on was that there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know, that we thought we were doing a good job with our EAP program, but really weren't doing a very good job at it. With this one here, they define 50% of people develop some type of mental illness in their lifetime. 25% have some type of mental disorder. 15% of adults consider suicide during a lifetime, and for every one suicide, there's 25 attempts. So we started looking at that and saying, hey, we've had 4 suicides. How many additional people that are out there are suffering? And why were those people able to do that? What was going on in our system as far as the response to it? Did most of those people, except for the one retiree, and he was actually going by the airport station, Station 19, and visiting there, and they had a feeling that something was going on. With the other 3, did the members at the station have a feeling something was going on? Most of them did. It was those same things as far as some drugs and some alcohol, attendance, some things that were going on. They kind of talked about it a little bit, but really hadn't been able to figure out, what do I do? Or really, how do I manage it? We went through, we met 15 times in a little over 3 months. And what we found was, as far as an organization, we had a lot of questions and a lot of things that we didn't know. And a lot of it was that we realized that we're really good at firefighting. We've been spending a lot of time being really good paramedics. but we haven't taken care of our members, and we haven't put time into that portion of it. And we said we're going to make an effort and move forward with it. We went to the IAFF, we went to the IFC with the National Fallen Firefighters and met with them. I don't want to say we were the catalyst to do it, but if you look that's out there, suicides and mental illness and mental health has become a forefront in each one of those organizations moving forward. We had a lot of things. People would come in and we would sit and talk. These meetings would run for about 4 hours, and we had a great attendance within our department of people coming in and saying different things about it's an impulse reaction and what happens when you go to therapy. Do I sit on a couch? And we would actually just sit there and they would talk through each one of these things. And at the end of it, we came out with some recommendations for moving forward within the department. Look at this one here. You can see there's normal life stressors that happen. Again, in that 30-year career that you're going to go through, we're going to have some of these things that are going to happen to you. Probably one of the biggest things is that on the firefighter side of it was the sleep portion keeps coming back, is the ability to sleep. I know that when I left the field, I would take a nap every single day. And even though I always slept well at the station and stuff on my days off and stuff, I would take a nap. Once I came onto staff, what I found was I didn't need a nap anymore. And so even though I thought I slept well at work, I really didn't. And the other thing is that exposure and stuff. Probably each one of us have gone on thousands of calls, and we can't remember except for just those couple ones that will always pop up. And for some reason, they have those triggers that will pop up onto us that, hey, this call had an event. For the most part, it says up there, our ability to cope is really good. Because of what we do, the way that we're trained, the way that we respond, our social system works very well in taking care of it. But every so often when we get outside of that, we need some more help to be able to get through it. Is it easy to ask for help? For most of us, it would be. Yeah, no.
We would like it to be.
We would like it to be, but it is, yeah, exactly. It's very difficult to ask for help. We looked at the thing, we wanted to increase our resources. We wanted to make the accessibility to it so that people maybe that didn't feel comfortable could go somewhere else to ask. We wanted to raise an awareness on it, reduce that stigma. And the last one on the bottom here is one that we're just now hitting on, was that instead of waiting for a bad event to happen, is how do we build resilience in people? How do we build people up and how do we improve so that you don't have to access the system? Some of our recommendations are to create a task force, wellness committee. We've now transferred that into labor management does it together. We call it member services. They manage anything that happens with the members together. We've done department-wide wellness education. Every year we do some type of wellness education where you'll come in and get some type of information, the feel-good information. There's a bunch of different names that have come out of that portion of it, but it has been key for us that every single year we do some type of reinforcement back into the system. That's the reoccurring stuff that happens every single year. We'll look at a website. I'll show you a website in which anybody can access. So if anybody wants to access the website, they can do that. One of the things that we learned very early on was that what we're leaving out was our families. And so somebody, you said it, was about having families involved, is that it is key that the families have an opportunity to say, hey, he may go to work and he seems really good at work, but at home, things are absolutely terrible and I just don't know where to turn to get any help. One of the biggest things that we found was financial education. Is old, young, all the way across there, the financial side of it is absolutely one of the biggest stressors. We had members that had multiple credit cards that were paying off one to the other that didn't want to tell their wives that, hey, this is what's going on with us. We actually went out and did a contract with our deferred compensation, and they come to fire stations and put on financial training at the fire station. And it's not about how big is my retirement going to be, or how much money do I have over there? A lot of it is just about managing money, managing it every day. Now, some people will say, you know,
they're adults, what the heck are you doing being able to do these things, and why is it your responsibility to do it? Our feeling is if it helps the member do their job every single day and takes away those distractions, then we should be able, then we'll provide that to them. When the Yarnell 19 died, which was the wildland fire in northern Arizona, 3 of the people that were the 19th had gone through the, I started, I knew I was going to do this. He's the radio guy that does financial saving, Dave Ramsey. So our 100 Club came out, and what was different was we sat down, Phoenix set up an IMT, and we went up there and helped them manage that portion of it. A guy named Kevin Roach, who did some work with you all here, planned every one of the 19 funerals up there and went through it. The 3 people that had done the Dave Ramsey were totally set up. The 100 Club, which is kind of our police fire sponsor for that area, saw that was going on. Anybody that wants to go through that, the 100 Club will pay for that now for them to go through that financial portion. For our member that killed himself off duty, what we found was there's a lot of anxiety about that transition from doing this job for 30, 35 years, and then the next day when you wake up, you're a retiree. And what things can we do to build that support, to do those things, and help people during that retirement side of it. Wellness standards that will be put into the physical examination, protocols for deployment. So we do a lot of FEMA deployments. For myself, when we deployed to Sandy and went up to New York and we were there for 21 days, how do we take care of the people that are gone, but also how do we take care of everybody that's left at home, and who takes care of those people? Your annual physical now has a mental health portion of it that goes through and talks about how do you feel, what's going on. Part that people hate, but oh well, it's part of your physical that you're going to have to go through. Incident response protocol for high stress incidents. What we learned really quick was that as a battalion chief, you could be sitting in your quarters and not even know that my company is managing maybe a pediatric drowning or something else that's going on. So we hooked the system so that everybody knows kind of what's going on in there. Peer support teams, do some surveys that go through there every single year, participated in surveys, and then the last one was that we had left off until the very end, was the stress that happens in our dispatch center. So 1 minute they're answering the phone, the next minute they're doing medical help on it, and the next minute we expected them just to pick up the phone after talking to somebody through CPR and start back in again. And we realized, they came to it one day and said, hey, what are you doing about us? And it was like, we missed it. And so we looked at what do we need to be able to do to support that group. We've moved forward, and it goes back to kind of what we talked about before, was that support is huge at the top, but the organization truly has changed because of people like you all as the company officers. And again, we've had a really bad event that happened, but as a company officer, sitting there on the straddle, and all of a sudden the drug call comes in, or you're sitting there listening, and you can't help but listening when he's arguing with his wife on the phone, or that there's an issue that's happening, or he's got a kid that's having troubles and he's not going to school, or there's some other issue that's causing a lot of stress. And taking the time and saying, hey, you know, after work, let's go have a cup of coffee, let's figure out what we can do. Let's go and figure out these resources. And that was a hard thing for us, was the resources. In your packet, that number should be in there. Anybody, we'll pay for it, but anybody can call. So one of the things that our people said was that if I had to go and find EAP right now through my medical insurance, I'm not real sure I could find it. And then once I go there, I'll have to explain to this person what my job is and what I do or what I don't do. And so what we found is we just need somebody that has training, and the military, and I don't know why I'm pointing to you, but the military has been absolutely great, is that they gave us a bunch of support, and they have gone through just a ton of suicides from people coming back from deployments and trying to engage back in. So they have been great. We don't care who calls this, someone's having a problem. What we've learned is that our average phone call there is about 8 minutes. They call, they have some type of deal, they want to talk to somebody, they give them some information on what to do. But we've had phone calls on there that have been up to 2.5 hours of people being able to call, work through things, and these people are trained people, they pick up one phone at the military, pick up one phone for fire. We've actually set it up now that our police officers have a separate line that they can call into. The website, firestrong.org. Again, it's in your packet there. What we went through was we built a website that had all the resources. The only thing that you can't get to on this website is some of the testimonials. I'll look and see what I can't remember what my login is, but I'll give that. But it goes through, because we had so many questions about what's going on with me, what's the overview of it, what to expect in counseling, drug addiction, the peer support group. There's a live chat thing where you can go on and chat with police, fire, and military type things. Additional resources, financial fitness, family and relationships, PTSD, depression. And so what our members wanted was they wanted access 24 hours a day without having to go find their packet for EAP or try to dial a number and try to get their 16 things and then go through and try to pick somebody to be able to go to. Peer supports. There's some people that I can't believe are peer supporters on there, but they're some of the greatest people. So what we did is we asked people that wanted to be a peer supporter. We screwed up. What we should have done is say, who should be peer supporters? And we should have had that came the opposite way, because people came forward that are really good, and then some people that wanted to do it that nobody would go to. But if I asked you all in here as a group, if you had a problem, you had to go talk to somebody, who would you go talk to? You'd be surprised that there's probably about 5 or 6 names that continue to pop up. And we figured that out to come around the other way to be able to do it. Their impact on our department has been absolutely huge. Is that people have somebody, we've got young guys, now like when a recruit class will go through, they'll identify someone that is a peer supporter in there. Young, middle-aged, old, chief officers, the girl in the light blue there is an alarm room person. We've got all different ranks, all different, anything you can imagine that's in there, and they have done an outstanding job. Then what they have become is the trainers that go out and do the training annually with everybody in the department. The testimonial. The last thing that we've worked a lot on here lately is about resilience. It's the ability to bounce back and resist, and the ability to be strong. I guarantee you this is the last video. What you talked today about is a great way to finish it. You'd think I had kind of planted you to be in here. The way we talked about a lot of stuff today about stations and environments and different things that are happening in there, and it's all really important, and we've got to be able to maintain that. But we believe, and we'll put it in writing and make songs and everything about it, the way that you run your fire station and the way people interact and the way they become a team together and the way that they are a family will have a huge impact on their life and then later on in life down the road. And it said it, and we've researched the hell out of it. My connection to you as a boss, and either you can make my life good or bad, but the ability to have that environment and change that environment is probably one of the best. I mean, take the fire ground out of it, is that's our key job, is that fire ground and us managing it. But what we do in that station day in and day out will have a key effect on the rest of their life there. And you saw it there. That environment that happens in the stations, our ability to resiliency, our diet, our exercise, but really the interaction with our boss. And so what we tell our people, for every one bad thing that happens, we need to praise our people 6 times. Or look for opportunities to do that. So, thank you all. Any questions or comments? I think we were 6-1 the other way sometimes too. You guys have been great. Thank you for interacting. I've got way too much stuff in there, so I'll change it up for the rest of the people. You guys are a lot like Phoenix firefighters. It was very enjoyable to be here. I think our departments are very similar, that everybody shows up, they want to do a great job. We have the ability to do it, and we have some of the struggles, but I don't think it's nothing that we can't all overcome and do every single day. So thank you all for being here. Have a safe day.